You better be listening to SLEAZOIDS or I must break you.
ここに封印された一本の作品が。
呪いのビデオってあるじゃない。最近結構噂されてる。ビデオ見たから見終わったら電話がかかってきて、お前が言ってたもん死ぬ。
首をつって死んでいるのが。
いや、見えるわけじゃなくて。
ごめんなさい、さっきなんか映像がおかしくなったんですけど。
赤ちゃんの泣き声。
処理したターちゃん持ち帰ってるなんていう噂が。
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Sleazoids, the podcast where we go down the rabbit hole of 20th century genre fare from the most influential canon classics to the trashiest exploitation films we can get our hands on and invite you to take along in helping us create a canon of sleaze. Each week is a double feature grindhouse style where we discuss two films loosely related by subject, genre, actor, filmmaker, or franchise. And at the end of each episode, along with our honorary Sleazoids, which you can become by subscribing on Patreon.
Next week, we are talking a familiar story, but this time the Americans have their hands on it. Join that sleaze.
We decided all the official ratings and rankings for every film that we cover as well. Patreon subscribers also get an honor shout out and 2 bonus episodes every single month, which we are in our 8th year of bonus episodes. There are over 200 bonus episodes, as well as over 60 bonus transmissions, which is where we talk about new release genre films all throughout the year. And we are going to be coming up soon on the January Trash bonus transmission, which is always one of our favorite ones to do. We have some solid entries we're already interested in seeing, so look forward to that. If you're interested, once again, patreon.com/SLEAZOIDS podcast. And speaking of which, we had a bunch of people to give their shout outs this week. We had Darren Merlot. We had Yo Bro. What's up, bro? Robert Cherkowski, NNYOQ, Eric Stafford, Bilbro T. Baggins. There you go. Taking advantage of me having to say the names out loud on the show. Thank you. Ren's Dad 666, Lizzie, Joe Morris, and last but not least, Daniel Polson. So thanks so much to all of you folks for signing up. We appreciate that support. Hope you're enjoying all those bonus episodes.
Yeah, thank you very much, everybody.
That's the one plug for the week. As always, the other plug is Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you were listening on either one of those platforms, and I can see the stats, I can see you right now listening on both those platforms, give us a good old rating and review over there. It helps us climb the ranks and find new listeners. And the last plug, as always, is merch. If you are interested in a Sleazoids dad cap or a poster shirt designed by Brandon Lim of Black Belt Cinema, who did a design of some of our favorite 80s movies we have talked about on the show, and also included some of our favorite guests on it. It's a very beautiful design. Yeah. If you're interested in either of those, the link is in the description of this episode, as well as over at sleazoidspodcast.com. But that is it for the intro. Welcome back to another week. As always, I am your host, Josh Lewis, and joining me also, as always, is my co-host,
Jamie Miller. Welcome back, everybody.
Welcome. I believe 2 weeks ago would have been the last time you folks over here on the main feed would have heard from us, and you would have really heard from us because we had the first main feed episode of 2026 of a new year, which is always us putting to bed the previous year's worth of genre films, because despite talking about new release movies all year long, we technically do it over on the Patreon in the bonus transmissions, and once a year we like to take a little break from the main feed and just for one episode, just one gargantuan episode, talk about every single 2025 what we deem a genre movie that we liked, and we count down a top 15, as well as spending half the episode, about 2 hours of the episode, doing honorable mentions, which is longer than the actual top 15, because we want to highlight all the weird and underrated stuff that maybe you didn't get a chance to hear, because there's a lot of stuff we get to the top 15 and we're like, people know what this movie is. You've heard of the movie called One Battle After Another. Have you heard of the Deathstalker remake? You know, probably less so, you know. So we talked for 4 hours and 40 minutes 2 weeks ago. If you haven't heard that episode yet, we'd recommend going back and checking it out. It's always fun.
Absolutely. And I think we actually managed to knock off like 30 minutes from a couple of years previous. So pretty good. We did also get strangely enough, a couple requests where they were like, we actually wanted it longer. So you know what? Next time, maybe we do have to throw in the low 3s in the honorable mentions too.
I think we're traumatized from the year that it was 5.5 hours long.
Truly.
And we like lost our voices by the time we got to the end, because we don't take breaks. It was 5.5 hours straight of just going back and forth naming movies. Two guys naming movies in each other's direction for hours and hours and hours. So
I remember that exhausted feeling. It was wild.
So if you're interested in that, again, 2 weeks ago over on the main feed, go and check it out. But then last week, though, over on the bonus feed, it was actually your guys' patron voted episode, which for any new listeners to the show, once every 2 months over on the Patreon, we let you guys do a huge post in the comments nominating a bunch of different double features you want to hear us talk about. And then we put the most upvoted ones that you guys like the most into a poll. And we've been doing it for a number of years. It's some of our most fun Patreon episodes we end up doing. And 2 weeks ago, you guys hit us with a doozy to kick off 2026. We talked about 2 movies about women who escape some of the painful realities they are experiencing by escaping into fantasy worlds. We talked about Victor Fleming's The Wizard of Oz from 1939. Perhaps you've heard of this film, a classic. And we paired it with another film you probably heard of as well, but in a different direction, different vibe. We talked about David Lynch's Mulholland Drive from 2001. Obviously, this pairing has a lot of thematic resonance, and obviously David Lynch's basically all-time favorite movie is The Wizard of Oz. There's an entire documentary you can watch literally connecting his work through his love of The Wizard of Oz. So it was fun to get our own experience of going through that and to just watch those movies like back to back in the way that they did. There is a lot of connective tissue there.
Yeah, absolutely. And both like formative, I think, for a lot of people in many different ways. Wizard of Oz always seems to be that like first childhood classic for a lot of people. I know it was
It's the first movie you fall in love with when you're like your grandparents are showing you a movie for the first time. And then I kind of liked the pairing because Mulholland Drive is like probably the first movie you fall in love with when you like meet someone who's went to film school.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That is exactly the pairing. I love it.
It's the two formative U's that exist was last week over on the Patreon. Again, patreon.com/Sleazoids podcast if you're interested in that. But moving on to this week, we are joined by a first-time guest we've been meaning to have on for a little while. Very happy to have him here. He is a freelance film critic whose writing you can find at such places at Awards Watch and at the AV Club. And we got to spend a lot of time with him this year at the Toronto International Film Festival. And we said, dude, how have we never had this guy on? So it's time. Welcome, Trace Sauveur. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, good. How are you doing?
Good to have you.
Happy to be here.
Welcome. Trace, this is a long time coming. We weren't sure what your vibe was going to be for a first time bringing movies on, and we kind of just left it open to you. 'Cause sometimes we have an idea, or we maybe push people on. A lot of the time, especially a first time guest, I see someone log something like 5 stars, and I'm just like, do you want to come talk about that movie? And you, I literally just had no idea. We gave you free reign. So what 2 movies are we talking about this week, and why have you paired them together?
Yeah, it was interesting just having free reign, actually, because my approach literally kind of just had to be, Josh and Jamie are the genre movie experts and have gone so much deeper on the podcast than I have in so many directions. So what could I possibly pull that like they have not covered or maybe not even seen? And in that thinking, I actually kind of omitted the fact that, they focus on pre-2000s movies. So I was like, we have to do these 2 movies that I am connecting through kind of Japanese supernatural folklore and mysterious videotapes and curses.
You're speaking our language.
Yes, definitely. Which would, of course, be the 1998 J-horror classic Ring, or if you're in North America, you might know it as Ringu. And then the 2005 slightly more cult favorite found footage Japanese horror movie, Noroi, The Curse, directed by Koji, I believe it's Shiraishi. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his last name correctly.
I believe that's correct. Or Shiraishi possibly as well.
Maybe that's it.
We've
Yes.
done enough Japanese pronunciations on this show. I feel like I am starting to get a little bit more confident about it.
But don't worry if you made a mistake, because we do all the time also on this show. So there you go.
But yeah, just free form, go for both of it. Shirashi, we could all agree at the top of the show, and some of our listeners will just get extremely angry as it goes on.
Extremely mad the entire episode. Which, by the way, I can't imagine. I mean this sincerely. I can't imagine a better podcast to listen to than two guys just naming movies for nearly 6 hours. That is my,
Get those watch lists ready, baby.
That is my ideal podcast.
That is very much how we've approached it. But yeah, no, I mean, Trace, you were one of the, that's not too often a first time guest gets to break the golden rule of not entering the 2000s, but you happened to pick something that was pretty tantalizing. It was something we had heard of. Noroi was a film I knew at some point we were going to let someone bring on. So when it was the first thing that you suggested, I was like, oh yeah, absolutely. But I think my stipulation was, please pair it with something before the 2000s.
I said Noroi was the first one I brought, and then you said yes, please pair it with something before 2000. I was like, oh yeah, right. That's actually the rule of the podcast. I forgot. But it was the thing where I was. It was the thing where I was like, oh, this is like such a kind of a cult classic, and it does. And we'll get, we'll obviously get into it more when we get to that movie. But it does feel like it has tendrils kind of like sticking out from the late 90s. Totally. Basically.
Exactly. So, no, there's a lot of the times we have broken the rule to get to, especially the early to mid 2000, just because there's still so much style crossover from what happens from like 95 onward, and it makes such a good pairing with a lot of those movies like it does today. And also, we've had a longtime friend and longtime guest of the show, Meg, who one of the last times I asked her to pitch something for us, suggested something from 2020, and we had to be like, Meg, like you've been on this show like 5 times. So do not feel bad at all about breaching towards 2005, because also, every once in a while we like to break the rules ourselves. So, we can be hypocrites and we've covered stealth. Next week we are going to be breaking the rules even further, even though it is so connected to this episode a bit. So I'm excited to announce that, which we'll do at the end. These are very, very cool, like videotape J-horror procedurals, both definitely about supernatural forces from the past kind of spreading through the present like a bit of a contagion, and I think they are very well paired together. So let's jump into it. Let's talk about first Ringu. All right, we are talking Ring, or Ringu, the 1998 Japanese supernatural horror film directed by Hideo Nakata, written by Hiroshi Takahashi, who was adapting a 1991 novel called Ring by Koji Suzuki, and starring Nanako Matsushima as a reporter investigating a mysterious cursed videotape that is linked to several deaths of teenagers especially, and turns out is killing people within 7 days of them watching it, with a fantastic tagline to this movie, by the way: one curse, one cure, 1 week to find it. I was like, that's a pretty good way of setting us up. But this is our first time talking about director Hideo Nakata, whose career would be pretty much defined by this, the success of this film, directing both the sequel in Japan and the American remake of the sequel, and doing another fairly similar atmospheric J-horror film called Dark Water, about a sort of leaking ceiling in an eerie apartment building,
which is good, by the way. Check it out.
Yeah, I've heard. And then this is our second time talking, though, about the screenwriter here, Hiroshi Takahashi, who also wrote the incredibly disturbing Kiyoshi Kurosawa film that also came out actually the same year, 1998, Serpent's Path, which is a crime thriller about taking revenge against like a child killer in a dingy abandoned warehouse, with vibes just like so torturous and rancid. It's really not far off from one of his horror films like Cure or Pulse or something like that.
Also with a heavy emphasis on like videotapes and using them to reveal like what's been going on.
Oh,
certain victims.
the Japanese horror filmmakers were on like TV static, and the internet is evil like way before anyone else was.
Totally.
Yeah, so much of this wave of like turn of the century J horror stuff is so based around like kind of like technophobia type of stuff. It's very interesting. They're all pulling kind of from each other in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, and I mean, all of these films definitely, and this film especially, contributed to a real Western boom when it comes in interested in consumption of J horror, because they were, I think, tapping into something that felt pretty universal for people who were, getting online and spreading movies online, especially like if you started sharing movies that way. And obviously this type of horror had existed for a long time in Japan. I mean, you can trace their interest in monsters and ghosts and spooky surrealism as far back as like the silent era. A Page of Madness is something I think we're going to talk about this year because it's having its 100th anniversary. But you could also look to the 50s and 60s with like Godzilla and Kwaidan, or House for the 70s. I mean, we've talked about some of the 80s stuff like Evil Dead Trap, which is fucking crazy.
Yeah.
But the 90s, does it feel like it like really exploded with filmmakers like Shinya Tsukamoto, Kiyoshi Kurosawa, Satoshi Kon, Hisayasu Sato in a way. The video game fucking franchises Resident Evil and Silent Hill would also come out around this time. And the two biggest films, though, in terms of box office returns were this film, Ring, and also The Grudge, which ended up getting not just franchises, but American remake franchises as
which
well.
I think
which is
both
like the
did really
craziest
well,
thing.
too, right?
Yeah.
Like I think The Grudge also did well. It eventually got a sequel, so I imagine it made money. And I remember both The Ring and The Grudge being those movies when I was growing up, kind of having specific like fears. With The Grudge, obviously it was that kind of like throat thing that the ghost does, that like that whole thing. Yeah. I remember that being a real thing for a while. And then obviously with The Ring, it was this, the TV's coming to life and going to kill you kind of thing. So very formative in a way.
Yeah, I mean, and the franchise that spawned from The Grudge and The Ring, and Josh, I'm sure you may have found this in your research because it is such a prominent connection that I think it's hilarious. The director of Noroi, The Curse, actually within the last 10 years directed a basically Freddy versus Jason for the Ring and Grudge villains, basically the supernatural.
I did
entities.
see that while I was looking this up, and I was like, I need to. I might watch that like tonight when we're done.
I'm very interested to see what this is all about, because also people that I follow on Letterboxd apparently they seem to think it's pretty enjoyable too. So I'm pretty interested to see what this is all about, actually.
Yeah, well, because I mean, it really did seem like for Japanese studio filmmaking, these movies were so popular at the box office that they would keep greenlighting them, and it became the kind of thing where it would be like, well, are you an up and coming filmmaker? Well, here, throw him one of these. It gets to make money. He gets to show off his chops of what he can do as a horror filmmaker, and everyone can kind of play with it. So like these are incredibly popular IP in Japan, mixing the sort of traditions of J horror and sort of ghostly folklore and some of those, sort of that iconography, but then mixing it with this modern technophobic alienation, paranoia, and updating that for a classic curse or like possession story in kind of a way. And also it's worth noting both of these movies, the other connection, produced by Takashige Ichisi, who ended up being like, I guess this is just his bread and butter. Like if you look at what he produced, it was like all of this shit, every movie we've named, some of the Kurosawa stuff, The Grudge, The Ring, Noroi. He just loved making that kind of shit. Yeah, I don't know about you guys, and maybe this might be some Western heavy conversation about this, but I actually did not watch The Ring until after having seen Gore Verbinski's The Ring. I think Gore Verbinski's The Ring I watched on, I think of like a very early DVD when I was like 12 or 13 maybe, and I thought it was literally just like the scariest thing ever. It made me want to fucking kill myself.
It was. I remember I went over to my cousin Pat's to watch it, and we were like, it was when it came out on like satellite. It was at that time where you could get like pay-per-view movies on satellite, and everybody was you were either illegally getting them or actually buying them. And I went over and watched it, and I will always remember that closet reveal. Where the girl's face just is like in that form, and then kind of does almost the head bob, and it's just like, it's terrified me to this day, honestly. So
yeah, no, I mean, I think us three are fairly close in age. I might be slightly younger because I might have seen Gore Verbinski's The Ring. Also, just like maybe I think maybe like my mom was watching it or something on DVD when I was like 8 or 9 in the house, and I think I caught long portions of it, but like had my eyes covered for long stretches of it because I was a terrified child. So I had that memory of the movie in my head for a long time, and then I think I finally rewatched the movie like as a teenager or something, but still before I had ever seen the original 1998 film. So this I was also coming to this one initially, which this was the second time I'd seen it, having seen the American version first, which I feel like when you talk about Ring and just The Ring in general, that it's usually a conversation about which one of the two that you prefer, which one you prefer, or the the benefits of either one, because The Ring, Gore Verbinski's Ring, is such a prominent horror movie in American culture. I feel like and
it is like it was just as much of a box office hit, but like in the US, right? Yeah. Like that's why they brought this guy in and was like, do you want to do the sequel to the American film as well? Because like it's also guaranteed to be a fucking box office hit. Like,
and I mean, it was Scary Movie 3 made fun of it. You know what I mean? It had to have been making numbers.
It was a cultural phenomenon. Also, it helped the fact that it was part of Naomi Watts' like movie star transition after Mulholland Drive as well, right? Like it was a big deal.
And Ring, both versions of it, and Gore Verbinski's was just pulling a lot of this imagery from the original. It has such iconic imagery that can then be repurposed into other facets in like American iconography, and like Jamie said, like using it for Scary Movie and stuff like that. So it's so applicable to so many other facets of just references in pop culture and stuff. So it's kind of pervasive around that period. And like I mentioned, for our generation, it was kind of I feel like, especially for me, it was one of those like kind of boundary pushing movies, basically, where it was kind of formative that way. I was like, oh, this is like a scary ass movie that I haven't seen before.
I think it was also something too where like in our generation when it was released, it was the real start of us understanding the internet and having like be certain things where videos started to be shared and you'd be like, is this real? Is this from some type of dark web
chainmail era?
Right, exactly. Chainmail, and then there'd be like creepy stories that you hear, and then those creepy stories would evolve into actual like videos that people would make and whatever. And so it felt like when I watched The Ring, I remember having that distinct feeling of always being intrigued by ghosts and the supernatural and horror movies and stuff. But it was like one of the first movies to kind of mix that modern technology with the idea that a story that's scary could be true and it could be connected to you in some way, or there's a curse or something. So it was I just remember it making a big impact in that way.
Yeah, well, I mean, and the main reason I kind of brought it up is because I think maybe all three of us probably had a similar experience then of like having such a sort of powerful, I think, early connection to an American remake before going back and being like, okay, well, now I have to go see the original, where this came from, because I mean, this is also especially of the era where every American remake is, of course, a bastardization of original material, and they were just stealing shit from some better artist or something like that. And I would say that that's actually a pretty safe position to take in most examples. And this isn't going to become a this or one or the other. We are going to talk about the Japanese Ring here predominantly. But it did make me go, oh, the Gore Verbinski one is surprisingly like over stylized almost in comparison to the way that this one moves and looks, and it's a much more viscerally scary, almost like set piece movie. I remember distinct passages in it as like intensely frightening and loud, and in a way that this movie, when I watched it for the first time, I didn't get that as much out of it, which is interesting. And I think for some people, something that makes the movie, subpar in comparison, but it's something that I have learned to, or, having watched it probably 3 or 4 times at this point in my life, I've come to enjoy some of the kind of low key pacing of this one, the stuff that people would maybe call boring. And I think both of these films sometimes that we're going to be talking about today get accusations of being slow or being slow burns, and I think that that's true, but like I kind of like that in a procedural. I kind of like that in a mystery.
That's the thing, is I think the difference between this and the Gore Verbinski Ring is that this one is primarily a procedural investigative type of movie, and it's just it's literally going for a different thing than the American version, which obviously the American version's
spooky horror film,
I don't know if I want to call it like a fun house ride, because that sounds a little dismissive, but it is, like you said, Josh, very set piece heavy, very, very scary and aggressive. Horror.
Like even the like when we get to the tape and stuff, there's more grittiness and detail to it, and you know, a creepy imagery than there is in this one. This one tries, like this entire film tries to be more grounded in what seems to be reality that just slowly breaks. But it's like, even when they start to unravel everything in the mystery, it still feels as if like the supernatural elements are there, but not constantly aggressively, you know, attacking you or so obvious. It feels like there's these small moments that kind of creep up rather than it just being this entirely dreadful experience kind of thing.
Yeah, and this is like extra. This is extra true for NOROI when we get to that. But it's just like this kind of like steady, accumulation of like information, basically, that starts just kind of like coloring in the margins of the story. And like if you're paying attention, like close attention to what's happening plot wise, and as every new development happens, it's kind of this just like slow unease that kind of like drips in from the corners that unexpectedly, especially for Ring, which has such kind of like an unadorned shooting style. It's very a lot of like static. Just kind of like static photography of like on location shooting in Japan, and just a lot of very just like kind of dialogue forward procedural stuff where the characters just kind of slowly realize that there is something kind of just like very wrong going on, basically. And that is supposed to be what unsettles you, as opposed to like a very kind of propulsive like scare forward film. It's very interesting.
Well, and it's really interesting too, because this is also shot by Junichiro Hayashi as well, who is actually even collaborated with Kiyoshi Kurosawa a few times. So he did Charisma for him in 1999, literally a year later. So I don't know if he saw this movie and was like, that guy's got something I want for this. But also Pulse, which is something we've also covered on the movie, and obviously is one of it's. Speaking of the specifically, like Pulse almost feels like a response to this movie in a way. Like that's the exact it's the exact same subject matter of like lonely people, you know, but more attributing the ghostliness of and the modern alienation of Tokyo, but doing so through a specific sort of like internet culture one, right? And doing so with kind of a depression metaphor for it as well. But it's just interesting to think about, because Pulse we talk about, I think, as a movie that is very, very highly stylized. It's just the mundane qualities of it is where that, like, I don't know, Kurosawa is so good at loading things that look like plain images with just a weird off-kilter symmetry, or like loading them with like a sense of menace, like a stillness that you're waiting for something and he's training you to look for something. And I don't think that Nakata has obviously the same skill for that. So I do agree that this is at times a little bit more of a plain looking movie, or a little bit more of just like not maybe as stylized. But I wonder if I feel that way because also I'm comparing it in my brain to the first time I ever experienced the Gore Verbinski version of being like, well, that was an intensely stylish and distorted version of like what the person's face looked like when they opened the closet, versus this one, which is just pulled back a little bit more. It's a little bit more subtle, and I wouldn't even go as far as to say it's more ambiguous, but it's just, I don't know, maybe they didn't have the money to go as far with the makeup and stuff like that. But I don't know. This is just an example.
Slightly more ambiguous. I'm trying to remember if I have in my notes if they do like an entire exposition moment at the end. I felt like as if the American remake has more details throughout it rather than
it definitely does. I mean, it's got an Aaron Kruger script to it.
There's I feel like I watched the American one actually like in October for Halloween, so I actually have it fairly fresh on the mind, and I feel like, and I know we are not supposed to be just comparing each movie, contrasting each movie for this, but I think that movie has a little bit more. There's a little bit more of like the procedure of what to do about copying the tape and like actually like kind of accomplishing how to get rid of the curses. There's a little bit more of a deal made of that in the American version.
And there's this one spends a lot of time on just like the basic setup, which is such a weird way to watch it now because it's such an iconic setup for like a movie. Like now I watch it and I go, everybody knows the rules. What do you mean? It's a cursed videotape that you watch it and then you spread it to the next person. What are you talking about? And I take for granted that this is like the one that did it, you know?
Yeah. It's just so second nature of understanding a horror movie now. But I mean, like, you know, that iconic opening scene of the two teenagers.
I love it. I think everyone agrees.
About,
everyone agrees. You won't find a single person on the internet who watches this movie and doesn't go, well, undoubtedly, the opening scene and the closing, you know, the sort of like closing sequence, obviously where she comes out of the TV, are like obviously just like the two of the most iconic and influential like horror image based set pieces that you will see in a movie.
Oh yeah,
and there's
absolutely.
I love
of the
too
90s
like
especially
the stuff that it kind of it foreshadows almost right away, where you start with just an image of dark water with the title card and credits, and it turns into digital static, and then you get the story with the girls.
That.
And then when eventually, you know, they go through, they tell the story of the 7-day curse, and they watched a videotape, and then one reveals that they did watch a weird videotape and everything. But what I love
the fact that they're talking about it like it's just like this silly, spooky urban legend, and then literally the one girl's face just slowly drops while telling it to the other girl, and she's just like, yeah, so I watched that tape and I was told I'm gonna die like in like 10 minutes, by the way.
and then when it actually does happen, they do a lot of like it's far more subtle, right? It just kind of has, you get this you get the static of the television that kind of pops up, and then you get the
piercing ringing telephone.
Yeah, and then you get the drips of water that are just in the background. You don't see any water, you don't see, it's just drips of it. And so you get this, like, you just start to conjure up images that are connected with the sounds, but they're not showing it to you. So it's just it's a cool way to foreshadow all the very important elements that are going to come into play later on. And even, I mean, there is, I guess it's not, again, is quite a visceral, but the negative display kind of just showing that there's something that's like going kind of just completely upside down in a way before she dies or whatever happens to her. It's pretty good. So yeah, I really like this setup, and it's just that kind of classic creepy. It almost, again, it feels like a classic campfire ghost story, but now we're mixing in that modern technology with it a little bit. Yeah,
the opening scene, it feels like its own kind of short film, actually. It just feels like its own kind of like little vignette that could exist on its own, and then you just kind of have this, you have an entire movie attached to it, basically, but it's so just kind of like, it's so effective in its own kind of like start and stop way. But then
I love too the way that they use the reflection of the television throughout this movie too, where it almost feels like when they do shots of it and people are standing there, it feels like you're looking into a completely different world, like just a darker, sadder world, even though the world that he's created is pretty empty.
The very
and
first
sad.
time we see Sadako in the frame, like, and just in the reflection of the tube TV when the video ends for the first time, and then she turns around, she's not there. That's a great shot as well. Like, there are scary images in this. They just are not they're not subtle. Overplayed is how I would describe them. Like, they are just like,
it's really trying to get into her experience of this, like, this slow mystery unraveling, but it's getting closer and closer and closer to her. So if it's too aggressive, it would feel like too much at the time, where she also has to have a reason to kind of, like, I guess beyond her own life being killed, have a reason to want to keep doing this, because if it became almost maybe too violent or terrifying, it would be like, why are you even pursuing this at a certain point?
Yeah,
you know?
Well, and the movie kind of answers that, because she, at a certain point, she has to protect her son. Is kind of the impetus for like the continuing of her investigation.
Here.
Is he ends up watching the tape, and now she kind of has a motivating factor of like, oh, I need to figure out how to stop this so that my son is okay, basically.
I really like that aspect, and I understand part of it is from the original book, even though it is gender swapped. I think it's supposed to be a dad and a daughter in the original book, and they made it a single mother and a son in this case. But the idea of like taking this cursed videotape that spreads like viral chainmail essentially as like an infection. But what I think really works about this movie is how they, exactly as you were just describing there, like they emotionally meld it with a single mother's kind of like maternal and mortality and like past versus future anxiety, because that's what I get out of like the like natural element stuff, like the water. There's a lot of talk about a volcano we'll get into at one point in this movie, and there's like kind of like an old world, like that's what the past was, and they literally have to go to find like old tapes of like these rituals that happened in the past, and this all turns out to be a past haunting the present kind of moment, but the child is the future, like, right? That's the idea. That's how the mother is kind of connecting all of this together. And we'll talk about the big decision she makes at the end, where she's literally like, I'm literally going to sacrifice the past for the future, right? Like, it's literally just the decision that she makes. So I just think there's like a really solid base arc for this mother and for some of the very specific anxieties she would have been having at the turn of the century, and also having this very technophobic response to it, because I think it's really important that we see in the opening the teenagers are kind of talking about it in like an excited way, like, isn't this cool, like people watched a weird video and then they got killed by it, like that's fucking crazy. And then at first, when we pick up with the main character here, Raiko Asakawa, played by Nanako Matsushima, it turns out that she's the aunt of the girl who ends up dying in the opening scene, and she happens to be a journalist who's tasked with sort of looking into these strange deaths of teenagers. But I think the way she views it is almost like the same way an adult would look into investigating like a new drug teens are doing or something like that. Like, she doesn't really think that much of it, even though, you know, she starts hearing, she's one of the first things we see of her is literally interviewing schoolgirls who are telling her, yeah, there's rumors of like people put a tape on and then like a scary girl points at you and says you have a week to live, and she doesn't seem like that perturbed by it, or like she even believes it really, right?
I wasn't sure if this was highlighted in the dialogue at all, but like it felt a little ambiguous to me. It almost felt like her job as a journalist was specifically like supernatural investigations, basically, and like almost like she's used to searching these urban legends. And I know, like, I feel like Japan has a closer connection and like closer like kind of communal and folklore connection to a lot of these like supernatural and ghostly elements, just as a culture more so.
Yeah, I'm not shocked. I talk to a ghost every day, you know.
So I think there's an interesting element to where like there's not a lot of her like having to be convinced of anything, really. It's like something fucked up is going on, clearly. And I have to investigate how to fix it.
I do feel it's interesting, too, that like, you know, a teenager dies, and one of the biggest reports on it, or at least like how it's presented, I guess, because it's the first TV report we see on it, is it about a story about the supernatural? Like, what is this urban legend that supposedly might have killed this girl? That is a very fascinating, like, spin, rather than just going straightforward, someone young passed away, we're unsure why. It's like we're already kind of investigating this urban legend version of the story. And it's ironically kind of a way of it spreading. You know, it's got that same thing where it's like the ghost kind of wants this to spread, because it's at the end of the day kind of like a cry for help, or a cry for,
I mean, it's literally a whisper network of, you should watch it with your buddies. You know, you should go rent a cabin and go check this like weird videotape out. And, you know, it's and that's what, I don't know. It's there's a strange component to that. Yeah. And how she kind of responds to it, even though I don't know 100% that she necessarily believes anything of it until she starts discovering it. Because I mean, when she talks to her son, or maybe she's just hiding the world from her son too, and she describes the fact that, isn't it weird that like Komoko is having a closed casket funeral, and she's like a teenage girl who just suddenly fucking died of some quote unquote rare disease that nobody knew that she had. And like, there is some suspicions about it, but it's depicted in a way where she's talking to her son about it and having to explain the idea that like kids can die, and like that's not natural, but like it can happen. And I found that, again, some of the focus on just like the emotional things that she has to do as a mother is one of the more interesting components of the movie. Yeah,
and the child's connection to death, it seems, or at least maybe not connection, but his intrigue to it. Like, he goes and asks the mother about it. And granted, they're about to go to a funeral, but he seems very like, he's very straightforward about it and doesn't seem emotional or scared or anything. And then eventually he's used kind of as a character that leads her to certain things. Like, he goes to the room for the first time, and he seems to just kind of be like almost, I don't know, guided there by some invisible force, it feels like.
Because that's how she finds the Polaroids, right? To find out where they went to the cabin for the weekend and where they might have watched this thing together, and how she sort of connects it to the whisper network of schoolgirls that she hears about. Like, apparently Tomoko had watched this video, and she had done it with a group of friends who have also all died, and she like locates the crime scene video of them pulling one of like the boy corpses out of the car, and he's kind of in like a distorted form from far away. And you know, there's we get a brief flashback to Komoko's mother, who is obviously Reiko's sister, finding the daughter's contorted corpse in the closet, which is like a pretty gruesome moment, or one of the few that this movie kind of has as well. I just like the gradual accumulation of what feels like supernatural intrigue and details that starts pulling on like the yarn of I need to look further into this and find out what's happening.
And similar to Pulse, it has that much more, like, it's just very sad. You really feel the loss. Like, not only do they do the thing where the mother comes in and she says, like, I found the daughter, and we get the big flashback and stuff, but then she's like dropping to her knees and weeping, and you feel the really the loss in this film, not necessarily just the the scares or whatever it is. It's really trying to, that slow burn helps with this kind of melancholy feel. And
I've come to watch this as more of like a horror drama.
Like I think
it is like a character drama.
And again, having like these more Americanized versions of these kinds of films where they are being a little bit more aggressive and jump scare heavy and all that kind of stuff. I think we've like kind of trained our brains into maybe what is considered scary at a younger age and everything. And like, I will admit, like, when I rewatched this, because I've seen this once before, I didn't remember how slow it did feel. And at first I was kind of going like, oh, I don't know if this is hitting me as hard. Also having recently watched the remake, and then, but as it went on and I just kind of sunk into it, I felt like again, that kind of sadness I feel like it's trying to express, and that kind of like, again, an outward cry from the ghost itself is kind of what we find out it is in a way. So I think it really works with this story.
The slow pace is funny because if you think about the Gore Verbinski version, it's actually like half an hour longer than this. But this feels like this sits at like 90 minutes. But you do kind of feel like that not plotting, but the just sort of the patient nature of it and how it kind of like carefully doles out its information.
I do feel like it's like after we hit the opening stuff here, you have the really tense kind of opening scene. You have some of these early details of like finding the boy's corpse and then finding the the sister in the closet, and these moments where you're expecting, I think, more of that as you watch the rest of the movie, and you really only have like a couple of those moments like interspersed throughout what largely becomes this very emotionally grounded kind of procedural of just this mother trying to solve this issue. Like, the main one obviously is her being cursed herself, going to the cabin. Great shot of her finding the door she's looking for by holding the photo up to it, but holding the photo up, and it's like all the the creepy, distorted, blurry faces because they had already been cursed. And I guess it's how you're supposed to be able to tell that you've been cursed, is you can't have a photograph taken of you that looks normal. Shout out, by the way, to the front desk guy who has a sick collection of videotapes. I actually paused it to be like, okay, he's got 48 hours. He's got the birds. He's got Nighthawks. He's got Duel. He's got a whole Sleazoids collection in here.
And he's got this terrible videotape that you should never watch.
He's got a solid stack. Baby. And then the one she points to is, hey, what's the weird like blank one over there? That's the one that kills you.
Oh, give me that one. Let me rent that one.
You know what? Actually, maybe I'll watch The Thing. Hold on. Give it back.
Oh, it is kind of funny that it's just like a movie enthusiast that ends up spreading this shit. Our bad.
I'm sure we have cursed a lot of listeners on the show.
We definitely have. We did make them watch Mermaid in a Manhole, so we,
and Midori.
So
we got a couple
guilty
titles
as charged,
here.
To be honest.
A videotape that is kind of like your creepiest amateur film school student collection of avant-garde images that have been strung together in a short.
I had forgotten how many of them were like the American remake had to just directly lift, because they are weird and they are creepy. Like the long image, obviously, of the well, but also that point of view one from inside the well, looking up at like the dad who had just like thrown her in, the woman brushing her hair in the mirror, but in like this really negative space heavy shot where then the reflection of the girl is in the background. You get the close up of like the eyeball.
I think it's cool too that during their investigation they start to analyze the tape itself in a way where they're like, how would the camera be positioned in this way? From this angle you'd have to see it, and then they're like trying to justify it by saying, well, maybe there's special effects involved and that kind of thing. So it's just cool to see it unravel. But then what's really interesting is when they start to go into the history of these people, and they realize that they're from specifically, at least where this would have been filmed, in a decade where that video couldn't have been shot. Like the technology didn't even exist.
Yeah, true.
So it gets into that kind of intriguing thing too. And I just love that mix of supernatural with the actually kind of tangible recording or something like that. It's really cool.
Yeah, and I just love all the imagery, honestly, of just people like huddled around CRT TVs, just like combing over fuzzy VHS images, like as carefully as possible. It's just such an interesting, just like uneasy, kind of uncanny vibe that is kind of like brought on with that.
Yeah, like the technique just simply to put your camera close to the screen and then have the characters zoom in themselves on the first face that you see when the teenager like kind of falls out of the door when they open the door to the car and he's got the terrifying face or whatever. It's just like watching it in, you see it where from afar, and then having that digital zoom that gets more distorted the more you get close up to it, and still you can see the distinct face is like, I don't know, it just adds to it. That graininess adds to the creepy factor.
Well, yeah, and luckily, I mean, she has after watching this tape and getting cursed and getting that great moment, which is one of the creepier moments in the film, when the tape, ends and the creepy staticky goes away. It's back to just like the gray reflection on the actual TV screen, and she sees, the little ghost girl. She sees Sadako in the background, turns around, she's not there. She receives the phone call. She hears the screeching that was previously on the tape over the phone line, and she knows it has breached reality or breached into the world in some capacity. This curse, this rage, and then she goes, "Uh-oh, I have 7 days, and I have a son, story. And I have things that I might need to deal with." Even though I still do find it funny that the very first thing she does is she goes, "Look, I have this kind of the most like swagged out, handsome, psychic ex-husband of all time, played by Ryuji, named Ryuji, played by Hiroyuki Sanada."
I forgot about the detail that he is psychic. So yeah, I think there is a thing there. Yeah. I think there is kind of some cultural details in there about just like this connection to the supernatural that is existing within like the investigation of this curse.
Yeah, and they do.
But she's just like, dude, my ex-husband is too hot. He's moved on. I need to show him the death tape.
And again, I don't remember if there's any like real pushback to that too. Like he's just psychic. It's like he just kind of like accept that, and then he's part of this kind of clairvoyant community.
No, like thank God I have a psychic.
This is gonna be so helpful. And I do think it's kind of interesting too to like when she gets the phone call. There's no specific thing like in the American they say 7 days, whereas this one it's just like flies buzzing, which I really liked, where it's just like kind of a signal that it's happening. And the reason that people understand that it's 7 days is just because as like it's been growing as an urban legend, and that's the reason. So I think that like lack of specificity from the ghost or whatever is kind of cool. Like I like how much more subtle and pulled back that is, to be honest.
There are some more rules provided in the American version. This one is kind of like it. Yeah, you're right. It is kind of just like they have all collectively like grown to understood how it operates. Basically,
they just all know the story.
Dude,
at a certain
everyone
point.
In Japan is just it has a psychic paranormal like minor that they have to take.
Yeah. It is funny to think too that she was like watching it. It does it. She gets the phone call and then she goes like, "Shit." Like it's real. Fuck. 7 days. I think that's kind of funny. But yeah, this. I mean, I also just speaking on the fact that a lot of the movie is much more like subtle, and even it's like how it's shot.
I mean, so much of it becomes this like remarriage drama between these two characters, right? Of like, what are they get? Do they need to both reckon with the fact that they brought a son into this world that needs to have some sort of future, needs to be kind of protected, and they go, well, the mother just being killed by a cursed videotape throws a bit of a wrench into that, so we should probably sort that out. That is largely like what the rest of this movie is plot wise, right? Like,
yeah, pretty much. And there is like this I mean, kind of speaking towards some of the more like kind of elements of like loneliness or isolation that kind of like drive the undercurrent of like mood of this movie. There is kind of this element of like how neglectful or not neglectful she is of her son, which I feel like this is something that is actually highlighted to a much greater degree in the Verbinski version, but it is definitely here.
Yeah, this one is more like she just never has him around. Like it's kind of like she's so focused on this case that she's just kind of like forgot about him, and even the movie kind of loses track of him. And in a way where he's revealed, like when he does watch the tape, that feels like one of those really significant moments where he's come back into the film and you're like, oh shit, it's for this reason. Now he's cursed. Like it feels.
I mean, I gotta say, I
like
love that shot of the husband entering the movie, and it's really rainy outside. He's got his umbrella. He walks up. He sees his own son. They just look at each other, don't say anything, and keep walking past each other. And I wasn't sure if like the indication was that they broke up so long ago he doesn't recognize his own dad, or he's that loyal to his single mom that he's just like, fuck this guy.
Totally.
Yeah, but like that's just, I guess he's going to school. The parents are gonna figure out what the fuck is going on with this cursed videotape, and
he lives like his own little life basically. Like he's like a super independent kid because it seems like his mother is kind of like so ingrained in her own work.
Yeah, there's even a scene where like he's in the kitchen, and again, I don't know if they say how old he is, but he looks like no more than 5 or something like that, like 5 or 6. And there is a scene where she says something about like, I have to go, just make sure that you do this and this and this before bed or something like that. I'm like, this kid seems incredibly young. I don't know if like there's a difference in culture of when you like allow your kids to stay at home alone or anything like that, but it just felt.
I'll be honest, I have child blindness. The difference between like a 6-year-old and 11-year-old sometimes to me is like, I'm sure there's a physical difference.
Yeah, he's just so small and he like barely talks, so I figured he was much younger.
It's communicated enough that he's probably too young to realistically be doing a lot of this stuff on his own in any other situation, and he is very kind of like isolated from his mother in some ways. I think is communicated enough that it's like, he's young. This doesn't seem like it would normally be happening, I think.
Which does lead to a great image that connects, especially with the ending and with this whole idea of her kind of being negligent to her son and her maybe even like rediscovering the fact that she should be paying more attention to him, is when he is watching the videotape. We don't know that yet, but she wakes up and she sees that like ghostly figure of her in the son's bed. So it's kind of connecting the ghost that is, as we know by the end, kind of an outward cry of help and at least like retribution or something, taking the place of her child before they're connected by the tape and the curse and everything like that. So it is, and
really it literally
cool.
happens in the place she takes him for safety. Like literally takes him to grandpa's house to like go fishing, and is like, you know, this is where you're gonna stay until your dad and I have sorted this thing out. And in the middle of the night, on like the first night staying with grandpa, he's just like, look, I brought the tape. I don't want to tell you, I brought the tape. It looks cool. I'm gonna watch it.
The fucking shot of him watching the TV and the hand progressively coming more out of the well as he's sitting in front of the television is it's just so fucking. That's
I'm sure my mom caught me like that, and she was like,
"What are you
doing? I'm taking that shit back to Blockbuster tomorrow."
I'm not watching Showcase, Mom. I swear to God. But yeah, I love the shot too. That like before, you know, we get the big moment of when she's completely exposed out the well, where really all they do is they do like one image of her, like the top of her head being shown, and then it cuts away. So it's just like enough to know that there's something coming, but it's
like getting closer. It's getting closer every single time. It's such a good thing that it's just like, if you continuously more and more of it every time you see that part of the tape, it's such a good thing.
Yeah,
which is like
awesome.
it's so interesting because like we talk about how the like so much of how this film is shot is just kind of pretty plain coverage of dialogue, but then you do have moments of like some really like supremely like creepy imagery that is kind of generated by this cinematography.
Yeah, I think that's just it, is that you fall into this lull of like, oh, we're going to like this kind of beautiful location and we're just hanging out with this attractive couple who are investigating some sort of history, and there's so many scenes that are, you know, they have that meat and potatoes, like I'm a reporter on the beat kind of quality to them. And then they'll just throw in like this moment of like the child's watching a supernatural tape at night and she knows what it means and the kid doesn't know, and it's the most just like horrific realization of like, she has become aware of her own, not only her own mortality, but her child's mortality, and goes, okay, now I really, like, I'm even more motivated to fix this. And I mean, the mother and the father at one point talking about this almost existential position that they're in. At one point he says like, maybe we should just let it fucking kill all three of us. Like maybe we shouldn't have had a kid in the first place as part of the response. And he says that in a very kind of like heated moment or whatever, but it speaks to, I think, some of the larger parental anxiety that these characters are having, and the fact that, oh, is a future possible in this way, with the past coming back to haunt it. Obviously, as they're uncovering the details of what that past is, which I will say gets a little convoluted, I think, in terms of like the fact that they're like, there's this 40-year-old woman who they called crazy, and she committed suicide. She threw herself into a volcano, and then it turns out that she actually was psychic, and there was a doctor who was manipulating her into performing these psychic shows, and everyone got really mad at her and was like, hey, we should kill the psychic freak. That's fucking weird. And then it turns out her daughter is even more of a psychic freak who kills one of the guys who was threatening to kill her. And you learn all of this not like through a character like touching another character and having like a psychic vision within them. And it was one of those things where I got a little bit more like, there probably could have been another way we could have learned some of this information, or maybe even like, you know, cleaned some of the information up even a little bit. But
it is like it is pure like exposition for a solid like 10 minutes of the movie or so, and that exposition, as clear as it is still, like you said, convoluted. And I'm glad you just explained it all like that, because even like when I'm thinking back on that section of the movie, I have to think like, wait, what the fuck happened? Like,
I will say I do like the at least the lead up to the final part of that scene, where it's like for the first time they're kind of physically connected through whatever supernatural thing is going on. Because like she's having the vision, and then the ghost actually grabs her for the first time, and then we see like
and she has the marks like on her wrist, right, from the ghost like grabbing her hand and stuff like that. Yeah.
So there is something that makes her feel just more, I don't know, another, almost it feels like parental again, where it's like she's reaching out and trying to, but at first it feels as if she's being like an aggressive ghost or something that's trying to hurt people. Obviously, because people have been dying, that is a big part of it. But
I will also say I was amused by the actual flashback of them being like, look, she's doing psychic tricks, and people in the audience just being like, what the fuck?
Kill her!
What the hell? Yeah, kill her. And then chasing just like a long-haired girl around being like...
Oh yeah, totally.
I was like, that is what resulted in all of this, because you know we eventually learned that I guess like the ESP like researcher who was like having an affair with the mom or something like that was also the father of the child, is the one that puts her into the well and kills her, and lets her basically drown alive trying to crawl her way out of the well, and like her fingernails breaking off, which is like a detail we'll talk about in the big final scene, which I think is really great.
I do, but there is like
realizing that this young girl's this ghostly presence that is killing kids is actually also a child victim, is I think an important thing for the mother, because she connects, I think, on a certain level with this dead kid, with the fear of her own kid dying, right? Like that becomes kind of another emotional connection she has to it. I think one of the most emotionally powerful moments in the whole film, which we'll circle back to because I'm kind of skipping ahead here, is when she holds the girl's actual corpse when she finds it. That's just a moment of like grace and kind of weirdly ugly beauty that I just think that like another movie, maybe you could argue Gore Verbinski's movie, would play for a little bit more of like the shock horror, whereas this it does play it as like she's really sad for this girl that she really has no connection to outside of being like, this is a child who was killed, and that's fucked up.
Yeah, and
that's unnatural, right?
And now
that's what has sparked this unnatural curse in the first place.
And now that same loss is going to be done with my son as well. And I do think it's really, honestly, very powerful that you don't see her. I'm almost certain of this. And if they do, it's like for a second and kind of like a cold moment where she holds her son. That never really happens. So to have her like have that moment of like, I'm here for you, honey, kind of thing, but with a corpse.
Literal waterlogged skeleton, like leaking
with goo coming out.
Like they make it on purposely gross in a sense, so that she has to like, when she does embrace it like that with like grace and just like love and compassion.
It's such an interesting contrast.
It reminded me of the Sally Hawkins character in Bring Her Back at the very end of the movie.
Oh yeah, sure.
Totally.
There is an interesting actually contrast with like the mother's emotions, because she is there is that connection between the trauma of this dead girl and her own son, but then there is the fact that the threat of her neglecting her son and the fact that she is paying more attention to this case than paying attention to her little boy. And so there is kind of that element of the fact that she loves him and wants to save him, but still is like currently more there for this girl than she is her own son, which is kind of an interesting kind of an emotional reconciliation that she's like having to go through.
And it's also interesting too that the movie, it kind of like, it does a countdown, right? Like throughout the whole movie, it shows you which day of the week it is, and it's kind of like their way of going like, you have one day left, you have whatever day left.
At a certain point in the final set piece, they're literally checking their watch and going, how long do we have until like the curse is meant to kill you? Because they're literally trying to empty this well of just the gross water that it's filled with to try to find the girl's corpse and provide some sort of closure to her story, which they're hoping is going to kind of break the curse, and which it turns out is actually buried or is beneath the cabin. They actually have to break their way underneath like the porch of the cabin retreat in order to get down there, because that ultimately becomes the final thing that they are like, that's what we need to do. They spend some time on the island of the village where this actually happened, like learning about all of those details, and at a certain point they go, we just need to go back and hopefully get some sort of closure to this curse. And they really just are improvising it. They're like, I don't know, maybe she'll be less mad if we can unbury her corpse and reveal what it is that her father did to her. And
that is kind of the classic like ghost story element
that would
where
normally
like,
work. They kind of trick you. They make it seem like it worked in this movie at first.
I love that it is a fake out climax. Like, it's not a climax because it does have emotional resonance, and it is like a big kind of the big set piece of the movie, really. But then it obviously there is an entire extra kind of added on sequence that finishes the story that I was like, oh no, this did nothing,
which I guess is like one of the most anyway iconic horror images ever, where she does come out the well and slowly goes toward.
It does help that this movie has two good climaxes back to back.
But it's amazing, honestly, that the irony is that it was not the compassion and the like solving the case and exposing this corruption or this terrible thing that happened to this little girl that is the thing that's going to lift the curse. She could have just made a copy of the tape the whole time and then spent a lot more time with her son, which I do think is kind of like, dark, obviously, but funny in a way. Like, it's almost like the ghost was kind of playing a really mean trick in a way. It doesn't take away any of the sadness or anything like that, I don't think. It's just it's almost like the rage. It turns into this thing where it's almost like the rage is too powerful for even that kind of solving the case and compassion for the girl to kind of to lift. It's not going to lift the curse. I want this spread to everybody. That like she wants it, the story known to the entire world, and that's how you lift your curse, but it's how you spread it to somebody else. Like, it's still a selfish act.
I do like the idea that it is harder to solve it and that there is no proper solve. There's no easy solve. Like, it is still like a messy, kind of a selfish decision she is kind of forced into making, but it is one that is technically going to give her some, like we're all walking towards an uncertain future, so why not preserve mine a little bit longer than like other people's, including people who have maybe been here a long time, like Grandpa. It is funny to me that the first person is Grandpa. Like, the I feel like a more normal like version of it would be like they would introduce you, an American screenwriter would introduce you to a character like you fucking hate, and would be like, she's gonna pass it to that guy.
Yeah, right.
Well, I feel like the implication is like that, I think it kind of speaks to the sadness is that like he will have the situation explained to him, and the just more and more copies are like just going to continue circulating into the world, which I feel like in the American version, I don't know that it's quite implied in that way. It does seem more like sinister in the Verbinski version, I feel like, the ending. In this one, it does seem like, this is just an unfortunate personal decision I have to make. And like, more this virus, this curse is going to continue to spread through these videotapes.
And it does really say that in a sense it's incurable, because it's like, you might be able to, cure it for yourself, but you have to spread it to somebody else in order for
you
it
have
to
infect
cured.
somebody else.
So it is,
the way that she infected the husband. Even though I was trying to figure out, because they give you such a clear timeline, and maybe I got a little bit lost. I was trying to figure out. So the husband watched the actual tape, and did the kid watch like a copy that like didn't work, or like why didn't the kid also?
Weren't they on their way to show like make a copy for the son? Because I think, isn't it something like it ends with her going towards that mission? Like it's like
maybe I just misunderstood, because I was trying to figure out, like, the son was already cursed. No, that's partially why they were doing this, and I was trying to figure out, like, I guess the husband died first because the husband watched it a day before the kid. So then she was hoping.
I think that's what it is. I think it's like the kid is still on a timer, but she is on the way to.
But she's on the way to extend that timer. Gotcha. That makes sense.
I think the dad watches it like the day after she does, and they don't even. What I find interesting about his experience is that they don't even show it. They're just kind of like, he's just kind of passive about it. He's like, okay, I watched it, you know.
Yeah, well, because he's the psychic guy, he's the paranormal guy. He's seen this shit before. Someone just fucking made this shit. But also he never gets the call, right? Which is like one of the details they bring up, is that, you know, he. Oh yeah. That
at least
after he watches it.
Do they say that in dialogue? Do they actually say, like, you didn't get a call?
They actually say that. Well, she says that as like a thing to be like, that's why I know that, like, you needed to watch like you needed to make like a copy of it or something, or there was it like invalidated it or something. I don't know. I can't remember the exact details of it, because I do find this a tiny bit convoluted, even though they do their best to, I think, explain it to you. But it is worth it for the scene of, like, the twist of the fact that they didn't provide this closure, even by uncovering the girl's body and, you know, reporting it to the police and getting this story out there. They do not pacify her rage in any way, which is funny, because this will kick with Noroi as well, where the characters spend a lot of time trying to pacify like a supernatural thing, and then it just goes, no, fuck you guys.
Too powerful, baby.
Not possible.
Yeah, and in this one though, like obviously the scene of Ryuji, like, thinking he's safe at home, seeing the TV static hit, the girl come from the well, literally walk out of the TV in like that unnatural, like, contorted sort of like reverse footage way that they're having her pull her way out. Obviously the hair dripped all over her face
like so many times since then. I don't know if it was a thing prior, but it feels like this was like I've seen this in so much Japanese horror, and then eventually, of course, bleeding into American horror. So
that is definitely, especially J-horror, that has become the de facto creepy girl with long black hair image, basically.
Like, is it Pulse the one that has the hallway scene where like that has stuck with me since I've seen it. It's unbelievably scary, but that has to be kind of like from this in a sense. So
how they never asked Kurosawa to make like one of these movies at some point in like the mid 2000s. I bet you he would have done it too.
Yeah, he would have nailed it.
That effect of her coming through the TV still looks great today. Like it looks like so eerie. It's like seeing her,
all of her fingernail-less hands, like trying to crawl their way like across the floor towards him and stuff.
But she can't. Like, there's no like. Yeah, it's. And then I also love the simplicity of the zoom into her eye, where it's just like all those red veins popping up, and just like it just feels so. It feels like rage. It really does. It just feels like a ghost of rage, and it's awesome.
I do think it's funny that a ghost tells the mom that she needs to make a copy by seeing the ghost on the TV and pointing at it. Although I guess, like, you know, if the ultimate goal is for this thing to be copied and shared around, I guess it would need to communicate that at some point. Like, this is what you need to do in order to be saved. Yeah. So, and it is a win-win for both of us, so that this gets spread around and nothing will happen to you. So, it's just interesting.
Did she make the copy? Oh yeah, she had to have made the copy before the husband dies, because that's how she survives, because he watches it after her. So I'm just trying to get the timeline. Yep. So never mind.
Yep, and she, of course, realizes in that moment that her and her son's survival is going to require her to copy and keep spreading the tape to others. And, you know, basically, as long as they all do it before their week is up, nobody will die, theoretically. She will protect her child from the ghost of another child victim until hopefully the end of time. But there is a kind of wonderful somber ambiguity to the way that it ends, because it is like, this is something she's going to have to maintain until, you know, forever, basically, right? So.
Yeah. And what's interesting too is, like, it's one of the only grand images, I feel like, that connects the supernatural.
The shot of her driving?
Yeah, the shot of her driving, and then also the shot when they're on the beach and the black clouds are swarming in. It just feels so much bigger than the rest of the story in a weird way. It's simple, of course. It's just like black clouds coming in, but just
there's apocalyptic implications here, right? Of what is happening. And I mean, that's also why they connect it to the story of like the volcano as well, because obviously that is something that feels just so huge and natural and like destructive from like the old world in a way. Like, I could have used the shot of the woman literally hurling herself into the volcano. That would have been cool, but you know,
what are you gonna do?
Punch.
You know, but I understand the metaphor regardless.
Yeah, and there's kind of this overarching feeling of like these old Japanese like traditional values kind of, you know, being encroached on by this proliferating technology that just
the
is
sick videotape culture.
Yeah. These kids don't stop watching their videotapes.
that dude, he was a sicko spreading that to the reporter. He had the birds. He didn't give that to her. He gave her the tape.
Yeah,
yeah, sure, you can fucking watch this. I guess.
It's like, you want like Hitchcock? Check this shit out. This shit's crazy.
Does that guy even know what that tape is?
He's just spreading two girls, one cup around.
It's not in my collection. I have a very carefully curated collection of movies I like.
This is sorted by director.
This is my snuff collection. Would you like to check it out?
Yeah. But I think pivoting towards the reductive rating round, which for you, Trace, is to remove all the words and all the nuance and reduce the movie to a number between 1 and 5, and also final statements or any moments or scenes or lines or anything we didn't get to as we were discussing. We wrap up here too. But this is a very solid 4 for me. I have a really good time with this, despite I still think. And we're going to find this out next week, because spoiler alert, we're actually going to be talking about the remake next week, which is why I was trying to tone down that conversation a bit. I really have a personal attachment to the Verbinski remake, and I do think that film is a much more viscerally scary and a much more stylish film, which is, I will say, it's something we'll talk about next week. It's something that very rare to say that about an American remaking a Japanese horror film, because most of the time, you know, I don't think there's anyone who would tell you that the American remake of Pulse has anything on what Kiyoshi Kurosawa is doing as a director. It will just never happen.
It's it's not very good, I remember.
But I so respect how effectively creepy and well done the basic concept of imagery of this is, and how good so much of it is that it is just straight up lifted and borrowed and maybe expanded upon a little bit, but for a lot of it is just here. I love the idea of a cursed videotape, again, that spreads like viral, sort of like chain mail. I love how it is emotionally melded into this character study of this mother and all of these really, really existential anxieties she's going through as a result of this experience, whether it's maternal or it's mortality, or this past versus future thing that we've been talking about when it comes to Japanese tradition versus these teens and their goddamn videotapes. But you know, I get a lot out of this, and I think it just helps that I do gravitate towards stories like this. Like, obviously Videodrome, I fucking love a bunch. The gruesome technophobic imagery of that is obviously in its own league, but also Kurosawa, like things like Pulse and Cure, when it comes to doing these sort of hypnotic modern, horror procedurals about alienation and ancient supernatural evil and stuff. I gravitate towards things like this. So Chase chose well. I really like this film. The opening sequence is obviously amazing, of the teen girls relaying the urban legend to each other. It's iconic for a reason. And the closing one, with the image of the physical manifestation of the girl, literally, a waterlogged corpse at a bottom of a well emerging from your TV screen into the actual world and crawling towards the character there is incredible. And I just have watching this, I think the very first time I was a little bit disappointed in this film, but when I was like a fucking teenager, because I was like, oh, that wasn't as scary as I remembered it being, and now I've kind of come to be like, no, I like that this is a somber, slow burn, like ghost story, horror drama procedural, and I think if you view it in that lens, it's a little different, and I've come to realize that maybe actually one of my favorite moments in this film is just a mom connecting, the fear of her own son's mortality to this young victim and being like, I am going to snuggle with this waterlogged, disgusting skeleton at the bottom of a well. And that actually being a moment of like emotional grace and kind of tenderness, and leading her to make the ultimate selfish, sacrificial decision she's going to make by the end of the film. Like, the only reason you understand that is because of the emotional storytelling. So solid 4 for me.
Yeah, Same with me. I was kind of debating it, strangely enough, when I was initially watching it again. I think I got too used to the more American version. But again, getting sunk into the slow pacing of this and the unraveling of it all, I think it's a lot more of a sad film, to be honest. And I think that's where what I get out of it is like kind of the connection with her son and connecting it to the ghost girl, I think is actually pretty powerful, even though it's subtly done. It's not as if there's like outward dialogue a ton of the time that's saying all these things, and I think that's smart. It's really that one image at the end where she finally holds the girl and embraces her almost like it's her own daughter. You can't help but connect her relationship with her son that way, especially given that the only time we seem to see him is he's either talking about death or asking about death or seeing a death tape, or it's he's in quite a predicament, it feels like, with the kid. But
look, this is just what moms think their kids are up to.
yeah, exactly. Well, that's the thing. It's like I wrote down in my notes here, I'm like, you got to go spend some time with that son before he gets raised by the internet. It's kind of like,
look, he goes fishing with grandpa. Okay, good enough.
Yeah, exactly.
For like 5 minutes.
He needs to fish. He needs to touch grass. Exactly, because that kid's gonna be obsessed with E-Bombs World and live leaks in 10 years time. You know what I mean? You need to pay attention. But anyway, I love the reflection shots and the television. There's a few of them that just, it feels as if he's like kind of entering into this darker mirror world. There is actually kind of some stylish shots too that are a lot more, just much bigger than what the rest of the film does. Like when she does approach that cabin area at first, there's this like big, like kind of a sweeping pan that the camera does, or a tracking shot leading up to the big location. So there are moments of that. It's just a lot of it is much more subtle. I love the old ghost story mixed with the modern technology. I think that's just, I think that idea is going to be endlessly intriguing no matter how advanced we get. It does feel like it has this funny, I don't think it's ever saying this, but it does feel like it has this funny thing where it's like fear of amateur filmmaking. Too scary, too violent, not enough restrictions. You know what I mean? Just having this like shot on video thing is kind of interesting. But yeah, so I think that there's, and also the iconic horror images that everybody knows at this point. Good stuff. 4 out of 5. For you, Trace.
Yeah, no, I think you guys kind of encapsulated a lot of my thoughts with y'all's wrap-ups, honestly. But I feel like this one, I see friends that are disappointed watching this one, similar to maybe how we all felt when we had first seen it. But it is one that I appreciate as its own kind of, A side or B side to the American version, depending on which one you saw first, maybe. This one almost feels like more kind of you can kind of almost tell more that this is based on a book. This one, it feels kind of almost more like novelistic in its ambitions of how it goes through the procedural. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I think that definitely is its kind of its own appeal when it's kind of underlined by all that loneliness and alienation we've talked about. And despite the fact that we kind of talked about that it kind of has a plain directing style, I think that I think a lot of J-horror just kind of has this very uncanny ability to kind of just tap into like the eerie and this very kind of like disconcerting vision of the supernatural, which I think is still kind of carried over here, and we will definitely be talking about this in the next film as well. So this is definitely a 4 out of 5 for me, I'd say.
All right, well, I think that's going to wrap it up for Ring from 1998. We're going to be right back, and we're going to be talking about Noroi the Curse. Stick around.
たまにおかしな素振りをするようなことがもう全部ダメなんだよ。
外国語の中にですね、
かぐたば
かぐたばとかぐたばってなんだ。山にいるじゃないか。本当？楽になった。
All right, we are back and we are talking Noroi the Curse, the 2005 Japanese mockumentary found footage horror film written and directed by, did we decide on this officially? Or we all have to hold the line here. Koji Shiraishi? Is that how we decided we were going to do it?
This is your podcast. I'm following your lead.
No, you cannot put that on me. You presented that as the original. So it's all on Trace.
I think that's good.
I mean, Trace is just going to accept any responsibilities. We will include his email in the description of this episode. Feel free to send any and all complaints.
Thank you.
Written by Naoyuki Yokota and starring Jin Muraki as a paranormal investigator and documentary filmmaker named Kobayashi, who is researching the mysterious events involving, we'll get into it here, but weird noises, psychics, strange disappearances and suicides, pigeons, dogs, worms, and a demon named Kagutaba. I loved how they said it every single time. They're like,
very dramatic reading of his name every single time.
Awesome.
It's awesome. But yeah, this is our first time talking about prolific Japanese horror filmmaker Koji Shiraishi, who got his career started working for one of his favorite filmmakers, Gakuryu Ishii, who is the director behind August in the Water and also Angel Dust, for anyone familiar with us talking J-horror on this show previously. We've talked about the movie Angel Dust, which is a fantastically gross movie that Perry showed to us.
Of course.
Also involving psychics and horror and all kinds of nonsense. But he started his career being like an assistant and working on his sets before moving on to produce his own independent horror films, very much inspired by the found footage and mockumentary horror style that was becoming popular in the wake of the Blair Witch Project, and producing a number of films in this style, obviously including Noroi here, but also a few others too, like Occult and A Record of Sweet Murder, and eventually gaining in popularity enough to get handed some mainstream studio horror assignments, including, as we already highlighted, funny enough, one of the late Ring spin-off sequels, which the actual name of it is Sadako versus Kayako.
Oh, they did a Freddy versus Jason? Let's go.
That's literally what it is called. Yeah, that was what, like Freddy versus Jason, but the girls from The Ring and The Grudge. It's kind of hilarious that exists.
I need to watch that. That's gonna be bullshit. And it's
having its 10-year anniversary as of 2026. So it is time to get
people like it. Some people like it. Oh,
people I follow has said it's enjoyable. Also, we didn't talk about this during the Ring segment, but there is a weird extended universe of Ring movies. There's like a 3D one. It's very strange.
There's a lot of Ring content out there if you are fans of it. And this is my first time watching a Shiraishi film, so I cannot speak to what the rest of his career was like. But it looks like he's also done like this series, this like procedural series as well, which looks like fairly similar. It has a lot of girls screaming and like long hair everywhere.
Yep.
And, like,
that one of the girl coming out the toilet looks interesting to me there.
Yeah, like he has found a career for himself by the looks of it here, despite the fact that, and we'll talk about it, Noroi is a massive financial bomb. This is a $2 million movie, found a life on home video later, but when it originally came out, it made pretty close to like $0,
pretty much,
which is kind of impressive, but has since found like a really, really strong cult following, especially as it has become increasingly more available. I remember hearing, like buzz about it. I feel like in like the mid 2010s, around the time it was having its like 10-year anniversary, I started seeing like people, really start talking about it. And now you can find boutique Blu-ray releases from it from some of the major boutique Blu-ray companies, including a recent 4K that was done as well, which I don't know what it would do to some of the DV imagery of this film, but if you want it, it's out there.
I literally rented a DVD copy copy from my local video store. I was like, this is fine. I doubt this even has a 4K
this
because
feels like one of the movies that makes the most sense. Every once in a while, there's a movie where I watch it. I have memories of watching it on VHS or DVD, and like I watch the movie again in 4K, and I'm like, some of the magic scariness of that movie is gone because it looks too good now.
Yeah, this is the smoothest 480p I've ever seen in my life.
I feel similarly about like Blair Witch. Like I watched that for the first time on like a VHS, and I do feel like that added to I feel like I'm watching like a cursed videotape kind of vibe that movie has, and some of the power that movie has. And I felt a little similarly about this film especially. But I will say, so one thing I had always heard about this movie, one of the best found footage horror movies. I agree with all of you. You're all right. It's one of the best found footage horror movies.
Definitely.
Maybe it was my fault because I also didn't read up that much about the film because I knew that based on mutual reactions, I figured I would enjoy it. I did not realize that this movie was not actually like a quote unquote found footage movie. Like it is actually like a recreation of a documentary, but like a type of documentary that I love, which is unsolved paranormal mystery bullshit. If you find me like an hour-long special of some guy taking a camcorder out into a forest and being like, there was a ghost here, that ghost fucked some people up. Yeah,
let's see that fucking ghost, boy. I'm gonna sit here.
And he starts like trying to summon it or something. I'm like, abso-fucking-lutely. Yeah. Like I still find myself every once in a while going down like a YouTube rabbit hole of like the modern people who make these kinds of videos.
This is the dumbest thing that I'm saying. But have you ever seen the videos of the guy? He goes into haunted places and he just starts like bumping Travis Scott. It's actually hilarious.
I have not seen that.
He goes like, spirits, let's party, and then he just bumps it, and then something will like pop up or whatever, and he'll be like, oh my god, he'll turn off the music. It's fucking hilarious, honestly. Anyway.
Oh, so the Travis Scott does bring out the ghosts.
Yeah, they're like, would you stop? It's so loud. Like he's just bumping it. It's fucking hilarious. Anyway.
Dude, the beat is too filthy. Like you need to be stopped.
He's just like bumping Fiend in like an asylum. It's so ridiculous.
So good. But either way, I did not know that about this movie, and it immediately endeared me to the movie even like way quicker than I think it would for other people. Because like Ring, I did read a number of people who felt that this, being 2 hours long, it does move at a very gradual, very methodical kind of pace to how it unfolds. I actually think that the mystery here is fucking fantastic. I actually think that the details of this mystery are both incredibly creepy and also, weirdly enough, it might have the opposite problem of The Ring, where I found it like not particularly convoluted. Like I actually found it really explained super coherently. That I kind of went, some of the ambiguity kind of left the movie for me a little bit, because I was like, damn, they really fucking explained it to you. But they do a good job of doing so. And the fact that it is, again, just an unsolved paranormal mystery documentary filmmaker doing the tacky bullshit every single one of them would do, trying to get a story about this, and who happens to actually find himself in a, I will say, like legitimately scary, like Lovecraftian horror scenario that we'll break down the details of, obviously. I thought this was just fantastic.
Yeah. And I also think it's pretty amazing how like each section, like basically there's like kind of one section that is the through line of the whole thing, where it kind of cuts back to that always, which is the Kobayashi investigator, and it's kind of like the main mystery being unraveled. But every once in a while they'll go into these different sections to explain like a different character you're going to be introduced to. Like eventually they do like a pop culture talk show to introduce a character. They do one where they introduce one of the psychic girls, and she's on like a television show that's exposing certain girl psychics and stuff like that. But it's done in a pop culture way.
This movie is a time capsule of like 2000s and late 90s like Japanese TV culture as well. Just like variety programs, game shows, news broadcasts,
it's like a
all
mixed
of these
format
things.
Movie of like showing all these different. Yeah, it's very interesting the way it goes about it.
And it's what's really cool is that like you'll get kind of settled into one of the styles or whatever, and then like specifically the Kobayashi investigator, paranormal investigator style. And then when they cut to a television show or something, your brain does kind of do the switch where you're like, well, what is what does this have to do with what I'm watching? Everything else has been kind of more dreadful and kind of scary and mysterious. And then all of a sudden they're like yelling with this colorful television show and everything like that. So, but what I love about it is that you start to pick up on these little details, and then they slowly connect with the main storyline that you're watching with Kobayashi. And, I just found that to be like endlessly intriguing. So I was constantly engaged, but then they give you enough information that I'm like, oh, I got another little piece of the puzzle. And I just kept I couldn't wait until the answers were given to me. But at the same time, it felt like something I didn't want to necessarily end. I found every single little piece of the mystery to be totally interesting and scary, obviously at times. So
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a very effectively written mystery.
Yeah.
I first watched this movie. This was my second time seeing it. My wife and I had watched it. It was a pandemic watch for us, I think. So after the world shut down, we logged on to Shudder and threw this on for it to feel good. And my main memory of it was that I really enjoyed it, and that I remember it being particularly kind of sprawling and involved with the plotting.
Yeah. The scope is just bigger than you would think a movie like this would go for.
Yeah,
for
it
sure.
is. Yeah, it goes a lot further than you think it may.
Which is part of the freedom that doing a documentary format gives you, right? Is that he can jump around to be like, let's go to another character making a different type of TV content, and then edit it into my footage so that it tells you a story. Like the fictional documentarian in the movie is making creative choices to how to tell you the story.
Yeah, and it is that. It is that you're not prepared for just how many mixed formats are in here and how many characters are kind of folds into the plotting. Even ones that are there just briefly that suddenly disappear and are just kind of there for spooky threads of oh, something wrong happened here. It's still just a lot of kind of stray pieces that are kind of littered throughout the story. But I really was taken with just how kind of thoroughly and easily it is you can follow the kind of progression of the plotting here. It's not a particularly confusing movie, but it is slowly paced. It does expect you to kind of keep up with it, even
pay attention to it.
Pay attention, and just kind of even through maybe the more not mundane, but just kind of the sections of normalcy, or where it's setting up elements that it's going to kind of pay off later. It really kind of rewards that kind of close viewing experience. And
it is just a way more dense movie than I expected it to be, throwing it on. For whatever reason, I went into this and I was like, I've seen Blair Witch Project. I know what to kind of expect of what a movie like that can give you in terms of what the plot is. So I just was like, this is a way bigger movie than its budget, I think, would even have you reveal it to be. Because obviously they work with a lot of limitations. Some of the scary stuff is on the margins of the frame in order to be able to do that. But man, this is a incredibly effective movie, I thought.
Yeah, I feel like it's it has to be just organized so well. They have all of these especially when it hits that second half and answers are starting to be told to you a little bit clearer. I started to instantly think of the first half of the movie where they had all of those setups, especially the babies crying, for instance, and stuff like that. Once you understand the context of that, you're like, holy shit, they really set
you
a
are
lot
not
up
expecting
here.
the eventual image they are going to show you when they set that detail up. You're like, oh, that's just a creepy thing you'd put in a horror movie, sure.
And then even the mystery of Kobayashi's house being burnt down and these supernatural elements taking into place. You're just
it tells you up front, by the way, which I like about the movie. It opens as a mock documentary about the in-universe documentary, which is kind of crazy, and informing us, that a lot of the footage that we are going to see is going to be shot by this supernatural phenomenon reporter Kobayashi, who actually Jin Maruke, by the way, also in Retribution by Kiyoshi Kurosawa. So everyone has a Kurosawa connection here.
I also like that there's kind of, it's not necessarily, I don't know if you want to call it snuff or whatever, but it has this implication that this videotape, specifically the one you're watching, was deemed too disturbing for the public.
Yes.
So you're kind of oh, I'm in on something here. It's
you're
similar
watching
to The Ring in that way.
Yeah, you're watching forbidden, redacted, tapes that we have put together in order to find out what happened to this documentarian, because like that is what leads you to believe. That's what I think keeps you, even if there's parts where you kind of go, oh, you can go a little bit faster, please. There's part of you that goes, well, this is eventually going to build to the fact that like this guy disappears, his house burns down, his wife dies, and they tell you all of this right at the beginning of the thing, and then start playing his documentary he was making before that happens to him, which is called NOROI, or called the curse. And literally, I gotta say, one of my favorite details, they literally hit play on his documentary, and there's a part in the movie where his documentary ends and like the credits hit, and then you're like, oh, the movie's over. Then they go, no, wait, you're still you were like watching a movie within a movie. I'm sorry, like you pay attention.
You've completely forgotten that was the setup, and like that shit, like what a kind of strange unresolved ending. And then like
you're watching an entire like 90-minute movie, but there's still stuff around it that they made for this movie, and it's just, I don't know, it's a really cool way of approaching this. It speaks to a guy who I think has consumed a lot of material like this and like knows the beats of it, knows how it works, knows how to make it interesting, and knows how to carve out a larger world around the margins of it. And I think that that's such an important aspect of what this is doing, because when you're recreating what I think he is admitting is pretty amusingly tacky like television programming, like even if you don't even want to consider the paranormal investigation stuff, you're like, no, I take that shit seriously, all of that shit's real. All the other stuff that he's making, the variety shows and the game shows and other things that he's showing you, he's going like, look, this is all, there's an industry of eccentric people who make this is a product, and a lot of them are probably cynical hucksters, and like that's just how this shit works. Putting all of those characters into an actual ancient supernatural demon summoning, Lovecraftian horror situation is such a fantastic idea, and how it slowly bleeds into that, or how it does like that frog in the boiling pot thing where you go, oh, I'm in, it almost disarms you. You're like, oh, I'm watching silly content made by weird creators, and then you go, oh wait, no, this is actually incredibly real and upsetting horror situation these characters have found themselves in.
Yeah, well, there's like so much of like the first like half hour or so that's like pretty funny actually, because it is revolved around like so many of those like variety shows, and like there's so much of it.
I'd love to see it in a theater. I bet you people think all that stuff at the beginning is when they're going to like the clairvoyant shows, or they go to that one like Q&A that they do, and you're just like, oh, you're just in like these weird like industry meetups where people love to talk about ghosts and shit. Look at all these fucking weirdos.
Or like and there's so much of it that it'll kind of like it'll kind of return to it later on in kind of like a more sinister angle. Like there's the scene of the actress and the two guys that are going out to like look for ghosts or whatever, and it's just kind of like one of those tacky ghost programs. And then we're reviewing the footage later, and there is actually something very strange in this footage, or the little girl that draws the face, which is actually like super weird and uncanny and kind of hair raising when you see that it is the image of the mask basically. And so folding in all those very just unsettling elements,
but also the fact that every single person on the TV show, because they're doing funny enough, the same psychic test actually from The Ring, where they're like, have the girl draw a thing that she can't see. It's the exact same test they put the mother through in the flashbacks in The Ring. Here, it's so funny that when she draws like the mask thing, they go, oh, it's the one she got wrong. Guess she's not psychic. And it's like, no, she is beyond psychic. She just saw the fucking demon none of you know is there.
She's like, I want no part of that, thank you. I also like this the idea, it's kind of similar to The Ring in a sense too. Like there's this one quote that pops up where it says no matter how terrifying, I want the truth. And it does feel like Kobayashi clearly as a character has this intrigue that is propelling him to keep going forward no matter how terrifying what he finds out is. And it's similar to The Ring.
Sometimes your camera catches a little boy staring out a in, and that's like
that's it. That's
fucking crazy.
That's all.
You got to look into that shit.
And it feels as if they're in a sense kind of going towards their own doom. Like with the Ring, really, technically, if she didn't have that intrigue and she wasn't a reporter, she probably would have never watched that tape to begin with. And then it's the same thing with him, where it's like if he didn't have this as his career, and you don't know necessarily, and correct me if I'm wrong, but he almost appeared as if he was a more respected, whatever you want to say, about his paranormal investigation. Like he wasn't known as a huckster or anything like that. It's just kind of almost assumed that might be part of it because of, you know, that
I just
that
don't even
path.
think, even when this is made, I don't think it's a particularly respected industry or type of content to make. I don't think that it was necessarily a ding on like whether he believes it or not, because the movie does not make like
he seems serious about it, you know.
He's just in it for the money. He's an asshole. Like, that's not how he's characterized at all, for sure. I think it's just more of like an industry commentary that, like, even in his documentary, this is a pretty low budget production. He has like a camera guy following him around with like a fucking like DV camcorder, and like he's like walking up to a woman's house and being like, "Hey, are you doing weird shit with babies in there?" And he's getting like shouted at, and like that's what the early content that he's making for this is. And he happens to find himself in an incredibly, you know, amazing, you know, actual supernatural situation that ends up being incredibly freaky. But I think early on, especially, it is like one of those things where they were like, "Oh, I'm answering a report of like a woman who says her neighbor's like making weird noises." And like, you know, he's not making the most interesting documentary at the beginning of the movie. It's only as he goes, "Wait, why did she have all those fucking dead pigeons? And why did the woman who called this in die in a bizarre car accident like 5 days later? And also that woman and her son disappeared." And that is what kind of sends him down the trajectory of, okay, maybe there actually is something happening here that is also connected then to this sort of clairvoyant girl who also ends up going missing. Like, he starts seeing two or three different stories, I think, of weird occurrences, and they all just happen to slowly, gradually connect as the movie goes on.
Yeah, I feel like that's an important thing, is that especially in the beginning, you know, a lot of these paranormal investigator shows, if you've ever seen them, they're always leading to something that never comes, of course. And there's never like this intriguing thing that would make you wholeheartedly believe that there was a ghost involved. But when they say,
they should
like,
all end like this. You should not be allowed to make one unless like the ending of it is like you get killed by like the devil or something.
I totally agree with you. I totally same with Bigfoot television shows. But it is like very apparent that something is completely off when he does the interview with that family, and then they just have that pop up on the subtitles or whatever, where it's just like 5 days later they died. And you're just like, well, I mean, you're like, well, that had to have been something supernatural or just something beyond what our comprehension could be, because that is so bizarre. And so that kind of gets you into that mode of, you know, like, there has to be something here. This can't be just a hoax or whatever.
Yeah, and I do think it's fun that the movie does engage with some of those like more eccentric characters and does make them central to the plot, and namely of course the tinfoil.
I loved this character. I loved this performance. Hero. I loved everything. He was just such the opposite of how I expected him to be treated as a character, because he's a literal tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist, like freak of a character who is made out to be a joke the very first time you ever meet him, and he is the most correct person by the end of the movie. And you go, everybody should have listened to that man the entire time.
Every time you like revisit his house, he is covered in like more tinfoil. He's like, at one point he has a tunnel that he has built like in his house that he is sitting in, and he's sitting and screaming because he's terrified of the ectoplasmic worms that everyone is being eaten by.
He's got like magic spells like taped over his apartment or whatever it is, his house. Like, it's
awesome character,
full on conspiracy, baby.
And it turns out, he and like the little girl are like the most like connected to like this larger conspiracy of this demon that is like taking over the lives of these people. It is a very fun way to play that character in an unexpected way.
Yeah,
and it's like, the way it kind of ties back to what we were talking about earlier about how the movie kind of expects you to like trust in what it's going to deliver to you, because so much of those,
we're going somewhere with this. Like, you know, even though we are showing you like a weird mother and son scenario, then we're introducing you to this clairvoyant girl doing like the ESP tests like on TV, and clearly having some kind of ability, but not really sure like how this is connected to the other stuff that you're seeing. Even though when he does track down like the mother of the little girl, they explain that, you know, she's been acting weird. She can kind of of telekinetically move things around the house. She does have psychic powers in a way. And when he sits down and talks with her, she literally just goes, I guess it's too late for us, for all of us, which is like a crazy, ominous thing that she drops.
What you want any child to say to you.
Yep. Just passively throwing that out there. And that's before introducing the third part of this, because I didn't even realize how weird of a structure this is. And I could understand maybe why some people are kind of thrown by it. But then you have an entirely third aspect of this, which is, you know, I guess what you could argue is the sort of legit Blair Witch part of the movie, which is the sort of real life Japanese actress Marika Matsumoto, which is a really cool idea too, to just have this actress play herself in the film. And her pals are filming her as part of a variety TV show going into like a spooky forest shrine. And it appears to, in the footage they capture, kind of possess her, causing her to hear what she describes as like a low man's voice calling to her, screaming, collapsing, blacking out. And that's the footage that they show to a crowd of paranormal horror fans, and like they discuss it like they're screening it like a film festival or something like that. And that's when they reveal the psychic man, who I forget the exact term they call him like the super psychic, I think is what they call him.
What it is.
Yeah, and when the shot introducing him walking in with a tinfoil, what looks like a, not like the classic tinfoil hat with like the point, but like more of like an army helmet that's been like covered in like tinfoil, like a World War II army helmet. And when he comes on stage screaming about ectoplasmic worms and pigeons and literally starts just assaulting the actress like on stage, he's clearly depicted as like this mentally ill like conspiracy theorist. And at this point in the film, you're probably about like 30 or 40 minutes. You're like, how is any of this connected? Where are we going with any of this?
Because they're presented to you in such isolation for so long, and like they are just like kind of independent little sections of the movie that like seem to be like somewhat related, but are not directly tying into the plot necessarily until you start getting into the greater like procedural investigative part as the movie like starts to progress. And like, oh, these people like Marika, the actress, is like a central character to what it like as the movie like gets to its end game, basically. Same with the little girl, same with the psychic. They were all kind of tied to this plot in their individual ways.
Same with the woman and her son, right? Like they're it all comes to a fold. And I just found that like very, very satisfying actually in the way that this is sort of like plotted out.
Yeah, and her realization of being kind of more involved in an actual supernatural story is, at least at a certain point, more important than actually showing it. Like the one clip that they show her, the apparition that's on the clip of her, of her screaming in the forest or whatever, is shown to her. But what's interesting is the way they direct it is they have just her reaction, just her like surprise shock. And then I think like 5 or 10 minutes later, they actually show it to you. But just that initial moment I found interesting, because of course me as an audience member, I'm like, I want to see the apparition. Why are you just showing the actress's response to it? But it feels kind of like essential because as the mystery unravels, she becomes such an important part of it. So
I love that they spend a good portion of this movie like reviewing footage and reviewing audio. There's a part where they even like denoise audio to be like, those are definitely some screaming babies on that audio you got there, man. And it's through those like really like just really small, really unsettling details that it doesn't overplay, because this isn't like, because of the way that it's shot, because it's recreating someone's like amateur paranormal documentary. This is also not like a particularly stylish movie, I would argue. It is deliberately recreating something kind of drab and tacky, but in a way that does make the movie feel, I think, incredibly real when it does extend itself into the more heightened and exaggerated supernatural horror places that it goes. And that's what I really appreciated about it. Like, he's doing all of this knowingly. He's someone who's very clearly familiar with this formatting and knowing how this formatting is going to trick your brain into being like, you should maybe doubt what some of these people are saying or what they're experiencing, but then so gradually building out those details where you're like, but that's creepy, man. I don't know. That doesn't make sense.
And there's also this, like, with all those shows too, the way that they're designed, there is that want and if not a need to like see a ghost, see something there. Right? Like when you watch those things, you are kind of like,
that's the X-Files thing. The I want to believe.
Yeah. Like, you're not going to see shit. There's been 12 seasons of this paranormal investigative show, and they've never actually hardline said that there are ghosts. But every episode, you're kind of like, maybe this is the one. Maybe this is the one. So as they unravel it, I think that's kind of intriguing too. You just want to keep looking at all the details, all the background. And what I like too is when they reveal the ghost.
It encourages you to like work as like, it gets the detective part of your mind going. Like you are paying extra attention to this movie. Like when you see the one psychic or you see the one actress like drawing those like weird little loops that she's drawing, and then later you go back and you realize, oh wait, that little girl was drawing the same shit on her little fucking pen and paper that she was having when she was saying, and they don't even make like a big deal of it. They kind of circle back around to it later, but like that's how it accumulates details. It's a well written like world before
it makes you appreciate how intentional the script is. Like everything is there for a reason. There's nothing really in here just for the sake of being like creepy or scary necessarily. Everything is kind of tied into the larger like lore and world building of this ultimate mystery. And it's just everything's very intentional. Of Kagutama. We will get to Kagutama.
There was one moment that I found really interesting was when speaking back on when the actress is revealed that there's an apparition behind her in the footage. Like when they show that thing, it looks kind of like a smaller figure. You might think it's a boy or something like that, but then when they do a close-up on the face, it looks completely inhuman, or at least distorted to a point where it looks inhuman. And
the
that
mask
alone
is fucking freaky, by the way. The whole image of like the weird distorted mask and like how the proportion of the eyes and the little horn in the middle and like the blood on it and stuff.
And I think that freaky part is like the first introduction to that image beyond like the poster, if you watch the poster. But it's like when they do that zoom in of the face, that's the shape of it. It's the shape of the demon. So it's kind of that first introduction.
And
to
she
it.
Draws it in the ESP thing.
Right. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, right. But I guess that's the first time you see it in like this physical form where it's like,
exactly.
Now
well, because when the girl draws it, it almost looks more like a gray alien like type thing.
Yeah. And you also kind of see a similar image when they're visiting the psychic, and there's the totally whacked out footage where the DV camera kind of goes crazy, and you see like all the blue little faces of him as the audio is distorting, and it sounds like totally crazy and freaky. Which I was watching this movie with my friends, and after that happened, they were like, shouldn't they ask the psychic about that and see if he knows anything about this? But that's neither here nor there.
Also, like the contrast between like what they view supernatural when you're watching it in the show context. Like it's all bright and kind of poppy and vibrant when they're doing the tests for the kids to know if they're clairvoyant or whatever. Eventually they show her at dinner with, actually, I think it's footage from Kobayashi, if I'm not mistaken. And she moves things with her mind, and it's more of like a freak out moment. And it's just, I found that interesting. It's like just in the certain context, if you're watching it, people were excited
mode for like 2 seconds.
Yeah. And then when they see it like that, they're like, oh, well, this girl with powers also has free will and emotions and all of this. And now it could be something a little bit more scary or whatever it is. I guess it feels like more unnatural seeing it, on camera in a more normal setting, like a dinner, rather than seeing it on television with, obviously production behind it and all of that. You might have that separate, you're just separate from it because it's a television show. You might think that they're putting it on even in that program. Whereas this is like undeniable. It's like when we have this found footage, it's just, that's what you're watching. There's no special effects here.
Yeah, well, and it's what leads Kobayashi to like really be like, enough of this stuff has built up that there's something fucking weird happening here, and I don't know who else to turn to. So of course, the only man you can turn to is the crazy tinfoil hat man, because that guy, he's locked into something. He knows about these ectoplasmic worms. He knows about them eating people. They go to him originally, I think, because after the girl has that sort of psychic episode and they briefly talk to her, she ends up disappearing and the parents don't know what happened to her. So they go to this guy to be like, what the fuck happened to her? And I think also the parents lay in the creepy detail too of like, right before she disappeared, she was like, a man was coming around the house and he had like a tinfoil hat, and they go, well, there's one fucking guy, we know who that guy is. And they go and visit him. He's talking about how the worms have taken the girl named Kana away and that she was eaten. That's when he starts screaming about Kagutaba and laying in the first sort of moment of being like, okay, we have an actual name to pursue, even though yes, it does also, they get into that handheld altercation with him and the camera like fucking glitches and you see the fucking blue skeletons and all that kind of stuff. And you also very briefly get a Paranormal Activity style scene of him filming Marika, who is the actress, like sleepwalking and like sleepy yarning or whatever it is that she's doing, and asking the upstairs neighbor if she has heard any of the banging that they keep hearing during the recordings, which she swears that she can't hear. I also love when we were just talking about the those ghosts, or eventually what we find out they are also, is just fucking wild. But the when the blue screen pops up and you have all those images, there is something I found. I remember my brain going like, wow, that's a lot. Like there's a lot of ghosts here. This isn't just like one entity anymore. Having all of these heads feels like there's all these lost souls or something that is trying to get out. So that was like just a hint of what was to come, rather than just dealing with just one entity in some regard. It does hint that this is like bigger, like this is spreading. This is encapsulating so many different like people who aren't actually connected to each other in their real life, but he is the one piecing it together, and basically just being handed like he has one question. And he's very anxiously pursuing it, and it leads him to like two more. And then he's like, okay, well, I guess I got to fucking look into those ones, and I got to look into those ones. And eventually it is leading him to being like, all right, now there's a guy just being weird on his balcony, fucking collecting and killing pigeons. And we've caught that on videotape from like the street below. Like that's fucked up. I don't know what any of that is. And then he's going to like a researcher, like an actual sort of historian, and being like, do you know anything about a fucking Kagutaba? And he's like, I don't know like that exact name, but I've heard of a Kamitaba, which he talks about as like a god spirit or something like that. He then goes to like an ethnographical researcher who's the guy who tells him all about the village, the Shimokage village, where they were doing demon rituals, and that is the ring exposition scene. They have one really big one where this
guy's like, I know everything actually.
They were, and literally he's just like, so Kagutaba, he is a crazy sick ass demon with crazy powers, and this village is filled with a bunch of sorcerers who were like, look, we are going to summon this demon as a tool. It sounds like they were like, he's gonna like farm the land or something. I'm not sure exactly what they were planning to do with this demon, but of course the summoning, they lose control of it. They try to submerge and seal the demon underground so that it does not do whatever evil supernatural deeds it wants to do. And then they spend every year doing an annual ritual in the village in the middle, everyone's involved in, which they actually, I do like in this particular example, they do actually find like film reels from the 1970s, and they find tapes, and they're like, we're actually going to watch these tapes of them performing these rituals, which is the sickles at the door is a great detail. All the dogs and the weird masked dance that they're doing. It's actually a really just like creepy video that they watch, and they go, look, this is how, we do like this weird sacrificial ceremony, and you have that woman dancing in the mask, who it turns out is the crazy woman with the son that he is pursuing. So all of this is kind of starting to get pieced together at the same time for him. So there's maybe one very inelegant writing moment where they're like, we just got to have a historian dump all of this on you at once. But then I swear that's it. The rest of it, we go back to doling out information in the actually creepy and mysterious way we were.
It makes it feel very fair, honestly, to me, because it does get to a point where it's like, well, he does need to like progress in this mystery somehow, and you do at least get that.
He's not putting it together enough. We need a big dump.
we need to tie these threads together somehow, and like honestly, like we do at least get this scene where you're right. Like we do get this very creepy video that we get to watch. So like you were at least kind of like placated that way. It's like, well, this is like very heavy exposition dump from this local historian that he just happens to go visit to get this information, but we do get this amazing like kind of ambient kind of atmospheric horror scene from it, where you get to see the ritual happen, and I think it makes it worth it, and I don't think it necessarily negates how great the writing is elsewhere, and how he and how it writes him into getting into his final
absolutely. I actually prefer this to the way that Ring does it. So
because at least here you get a set piece. The Ring, it just kind of slows down for a while.
Him actually like visiting the location, seeing all these reoccurring images, being like they kind of expand, like those loops as the film goes just get more and more abundant. Like there's just so many of them, especially at a certain scene, which we'll get to. But it's just like him actually getting closer to it, I think, is intriguing enough. And I agree with you. Having the videotape over the exposition scene, I think, is essential, because you still get like the whole ritual and everything. I think that's really cool. And then after we get a little bit of it's kind of like an image foreshadow where he talks to Ishii's sister, I believe it is, and at a certain point she gets in like a trance and then like walks into a different room, and it's almost the same kind of framing that happens later on with his wife at the end, which I won't spoil what happens there, but like it's very similar framing and kind of like the way even
I really liked the section inspired by watching the tape of him just going to the village and being like, look, so there was some weird occult shit you guys did in the 70s. I know that you guys gave up on that shit. You got like a dam and shit now. Like, it's, you know, you're not necessarily, you know, living that old villager lifestyle anymore, but he goes literally knocking on doors and conducting interviews, and it reminded me a lot of those like folk horror, like Outsider comes in, like you think about something like The Wicker Man or like Dead and Buried, or, you know, any sort of movie like that, but you're literally just walking around with a camera guy being like, do you guys remember like a woman who you did a ritual in the 70s with, and you did the ritual and she seemed like really weird after, like she had been like possessed by like a demon or something? And you were like, oh yeah, and we all know that girl.
And it is like this ancient evil that you like, this ancient unknowable evil that is like hanging over his entire life now, and everyone's like, yeah, like this is what our entire like
dude, I know exactly who you're talking about, you know, like
we are descendants of this entire situation, so yep, absolutely.
And don't ask about the dogs and where they went, okay? Don't ask.
Yeah. but maybe find out, you know, she was, and they literally describe her as like a very nice and normal girl who was going to like nursing school or whatever, and then she was like, yeah, then she went back to the hospital one day and she was like, I would like to perform every abortion, especially every illegal abortion. Do you have however many you got? Yeah. Which is just a crazy detail that he gets from like the clinic that she was employed at, and told by the former colleague that, you know, that she was very hardworking, but in a very weird and quiet and like kind of way that like freaked her out. And that she was performing late abortions, and as described by the colleague, literally collecting the embryos, which is a very important detail for all of these screaming babies that we're going to be talking about. That we keep hearing throughout the entire movie.
And you do start to like, again, you start to put those previous images together, like the digital blue screen that kind of takes over the videotape with all these lost souls, the baby's crying. You're just like, oh, where are we going
and
here?
even like the loops, like it turns out that Marika's neighbor hangs herself with some other like strangers in a park, and it's apparently in the same fashion as like those loop that she's making in her,
and one of them is Osawa, the guy from the balcony who was killing the pigeons, and he's like, fuck.
It's all connected.
And just to go into the darkness of this film too, like they include children in those suicides as well. I don't think they don't have like the images of it, but it is, you know, just the implication of all of this death. It's like there's no one that is getting away with it, you know, like this demon is and going after everybody.
Yeah, and including that brief scene where she goes upstairs and just kindly asks her neighbor if she's heard any noises, and she's very adorably just like, no, I've not heard anything. Like, it's fine.
Everything's
like,
normal.
You know,
I think she literally says that everything's been normal.
Yeah, just nice to talk with you. Like, you know, like it's like the most neighborly interaction. And then the next time we hear about her, she's like, yeah, she's hanged in a park in a group ritual suicide with other people who have been involved in this like supernatural mystery. And yeah, there's a real bleakness to how this is expanding its vision of the horror scenario these characters have found themselves in, and to a point where it becomes kind of oppressive and overwhelming, and as much as it is, and clarifying all of the details you might have found confusing. Every single one like locks into place, and you go, oh, there's something fatalistic about this. Like, I'm walking into a larger trap.
It feels like it really reminded me of like John Carpenter's like Apocalypse trilogy, especially like Prince of Darkness, honestly. Like that very just like inescapable feeling. Also, the score, this was the Thing score.
It literally was the Thing score. Yeah, it's very funny. Yeah, he mentioned he's like a huge John Carpenter fan. So yeah, absolutely, he's inspiration.
Yeah, that was something I found interesting too, is that they added like kind of a horror score to the film. It's not, I wouldn't say that it's over the top in any way, and I think that's smart, because if it was over the top, it would get way too like campy and almost like it's trying to be a movie. But
no, it's literally the score from the Thing. It's literally like he stole it.
Oh, okay.
We aren't saying it was inspiration. It's literally the score.
Well,
from the book.
it was up in the air to me whether
somehow.
actually it was or not. But if it's not, it is definitely just recreated.
I need someone. I would like the audio guy from the movie to play those two things side by side for me. And
yeah, dude,
I'm pretty sure at least some of it is like directly stolen.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is very, very, very similar. If it is not the exact same.
How do you guys feel like just in general when it's something like this, like a found footage thing, and they're trying to lock into some type of more, this is real footage that you're watching? Do you like the score edition
I didn't
stuff?
mind because this is a tacky paranormal documentary filmmaker who was doing
true.
it.
Yeah,
Right?
I think the fact that it's his
like,
movie.
Yeah, like what's the guy's? I think it's like Zach Baggins or whatever from the Paranormal Investigators. Like if you watch any of those shows, they do have all of that. So that makes sense. That does.
And
check
I don't
out.
think it hurts.
Is that character's name, Jamie? How did you remember that name? Of all the names you've ever remembered in your life.
Oh, dude, because me and my brothers watch that and laugh our asses off all the time. I think his name's Zach Baggins. I
think it's pronounced Bagans. I think Zach Bagans is his name.
Okay, gotcha. But no, that's kind of a go-to for us when we want to like laugh, because that show for me is strange where I don't know if it's actually comedy. Like sometimes I'm like, I think he might be in on this. So anyway. That's a whole other spiel, but yeah,
I do think the score still does like contribute to the overall mood of the movie, though, even if it is supposed to be like accompanying his amateur documentary or whatever. I think because it is such
subtle, if it doesn't. I've never. There's not a scene that I can remember anyway where it's like it's really popping. It's just kind of setting you into the tone of it's intriguing and mysterious and dark and
it is just this ominous kind of like thumping Carpenter-esque, if not Carpenter synth score that is helping kind of guide the tone of the movie. So it does really work, especially as we move from some of the lighter in tone segments as we build gradually, and the horror really starts seeping in as we get closer to the
because it's not like it's used to a really manipulative like jump scare moment or something. Like it is mostly just like that mood of dread is more primarily how it's used.
And also like I find all the terrifying moments to be those more just quiet moments where they're revealing something about the mystery that supernatural has been told to you. Or even again, when we go back to that blue screen where it's kind of like that the digital corrupt file thing that happens where all of the spirits come into the image. They're doing a bunch of like digital distortion, and it feels very sharp even at a certain point, like almost bad for your ears. And that feels really cool because it's starting to mix the more, I guess, ancient supernatural stuff with the modern technology, similar to The Ring in a way.
I mean, I also find it really scary when it just like does something that is incredibly gruesome really flatly. Yeah, like when it just does cut back to like a news report and they're just like, so there's been a missing girl for a couple days. Well, it turns out the dad just murdered the wife for like no reason.
Right.
And you just go, what? And you're like, we were interviewing that guy like 2 scenes ago. What the fuck? He was normal.
We get this information delivered just via a very plain newscast.
It's like that first one where you get the interview with the mother and daughter, and then they're like 5 days later they died. You're like, what?
Died in a bizarre car accident. You're like, what?
Like I kind of got to know them in the last 5-10 minutes. Like it's
and that's how I also gave it that kind of that inescapable feel to it as well, where it would just be like, yep, you were talking to that person, they were a living, breathing person, and then the next scene it's like, oh yeah, there is a TV report about how they were involved in a gruesome, bizarre death that is unexplained. And the movie does that like a lot before actually indulging in the ritual, you experiencing it from the firsthand perspective of it, which is really begins when Kobayashi decides, because Marika's obviously very scared about what it is that her neighbor just did. She ends up staying with his wife for a little bit, appearing to seem sort of like possessed, having pigeons like ram into like his windows there, which is starting to freak them out, and being like, look, we need to finally solve this mystery, as he puts it, like actually put all of our pieces together, go and confront this woman, Junko, who is the woman he obviously at the very beginning of the film, all of these deaths and disappearances seem to be coming back to her in some way, and he thinks even maybe possibly she is the one who kidnapped the girl. And so he starts to be like, I'm gonna collect a crew, because we've been collecting a crew. We have an actress, we have a tinfoil hat man who he also takes with him. They drive back to the village for the final, what I would say is, I guess, like a sort of a 30-minute sequence.
So where the
which
dam
I just
is?
thought
The dam and forest.
Yes,
yeah.
and I thought this whole final 30 minutes of the movie, I just thought was absolutely like fantastic. The entire stretch of it, like and it's prepared you for the supernatural and surreal details it's going to finally hit you with, because it's given you enough of information. You might wonder earlier in the film, why are there so many shots of dogs? Well, all of those shots of dogs are there because when he comes back to the village, all of the dogs are missing, and that's scary as fuck. You're like, I don't know why, but they're all missing, and that's fucked up. What did they do with them? And then you eventually see what they do with them later on in the sequence, and you're like, well, that is very upsetting. I don't know that.
And it's relentless. Like it's like it is so relentless. You be upset about one dead dog. Well, let me tell you. Let me tell you. Let me tell you about NOROI the Curse, everybody.
Yeah, what about like 50 dead dogs
50?
at least?
And also they're like disemboweled and like totally almost like de-skinned. Like
every time the camera with a flashlight at the end of it is like, oh, let's look away from that. It just points at it. There's another one.
There's
You're
another
like,
one. They can't escape it. Yeah.
This is just how Kagutaba operates. Well, it's fine.
I don't know that I support the Kagutaba platform. I don't know if I want to. Yeah, I don't know. I disavow this.
1 out of 5.
I supported a lot of what he was, his pro-abortion stance. I was in favor, but he lost me with the dogs. So
on record as anti-Kagutaba on Sleazoids.
But
it is
maybe not. Maybe we might have to bow down to him if he's as powerful as this, because
I don't know.
New overlord here. But they come up with an impromptu plan as again, a paranormal documentary filmmaker, an actress, and a conspiracy theorist all walk into a bar, all roll up to a dam, and they go, this thing, I guess it's sort of implied in the sort of the past and the sort of versus the modern, or the tradition and modernity kind of thing, where like the townsfolk stopped doing these pacification rituals to the demon. A lot of them left, and they came in and built this dam, and there's like new people who live there now, but they still had some of those old details. Like they have the sickle ritual, and all of the sickles were also missing, and they were probably used to disembowel these dogs and all these things. But he goes, look, we're going to recreate the ritual we saw on the tape and hopefully pacify the demon and do what these villagers haven't been doing, because maybe that's why the demon is loose and doing all this shit that he's doing. And it does the exact same thing as Ring, where you're just like, oh, this sort of makes sense as a way to probably grab, get some sort of closure out of this cursed scenario these characters find themselves in. And they do briefly make it kind of seem like it works. They have Marika like in the rowboat on the river. I love that hazy point of view shot of her inside of it, using the sickle, breaking I guess I don't really know what it is, like the towel that they have there to the banner that they have in order to complete the ritual. And tensely though, cross-cutting back to like Hori watching from the dam, the conspiracy theorist guy, and obviously eventually just going horribly wrong. Like she seems cured. She seems like she's maybe not possessed anymore. But then in the back of the car, while she's being driven away, the groaning starts, and she clearly is screaming and having some sort of demonic possession being done to her. And Hori is freaking out on the dam, which is maybe one of my favorite, like the scariest moment for me of like, as other than like the finale, is the moment where because we know at this point this guy's in the know about the scenario way more than anybody else, when they go, hey, we did it, and he's like really far away and they can't hear him, and he's freaking out on the dam in the background, going like, oh no, Kana, no. Stop.
What's so cool too is that at this point they have like two different guys with cameras so that they can kind of cut back and forth between the perspectives.
Yeah, you get this cross-cutting section.
Yeah, and so it's actually awesome. Get like a little bit.
The cross-cutting is fantastic. Like the editing is just fantastic.
Yeah, you actually get some like movie editing in it, and it still works on a level that you believe that this is just like a amateur production or something like that. But I love the clip when he's actually in the boat with the cameraman, and they do like a pan over to the bridge where Hori's just running.
They see him jumping up and down.
Yeah, and it's still, because of the camera qualities too, it's still got like that like digital grain about it, and it just feels so like they try to zoom in and see him, and you can see his panic, but it's still a little bit distorted, and then they cut back to him actually on the bridge. And I don't know, I just found the whole thing to be really well done. It was cool. I like that.
Yeah, and like this is where like the movie really leads into like the visceral found footage, like thrills that you've kind of been like looking for up to this point in the runtime. Where this is
you want like handheld footage of a guy with a flashlight running through a forest and finding corpses, and then finding handmade like ritual structures, and switching to night vision to see what looks like a young like girl kind of ghost surrounded by like screaming fetuses just like crawling on top of her and shit.
Just an insane image to put in a movie.
It's crazy. It's fucking crazy. And they also see like, I love too, again, we have like the guys with the cameras, and that's the reason that we can see all this footage, but then they mix in the kind of more ancient qualities, like the runes that are around the area and everything. It's just, I just love that idea of, you know, that the modern age discovering the ancient and being able to record it, and that kind of is involved with the actual images. Like, again, because they have the night vision, it's a very strange image of like, it almost goes completely gray when you see, or is it gray or blue or something along those lines? When you
like
see,
blue.
Blue. When you see the fetuses just like surrounding the girl, it just feels, I don't know. There's this mix of images all together, like timely images. And it's really cool.
Yeah, it's definitely the biggest like found footage surreal horror shock of the movie is this entire sequence.
Yeah.
And I love that it also has a sort of like double climax to it, essentially, where they go, well, hopefully, like, that was weird. I don't exactly know what that was. And it turns out basically what it was happening was that they were trying to perform the pacification of the demon ritual. Meanwhile, the woman Junko was trying to perform the summoning ritual and like releasing the demon from whatever sort of like subterranean submerging spell the sorcerers had cast on it from the village. And you know, we kind of hear about this a little bit when he visits the researcher again, and kind of they find like an ancient scroll that literally shows the rules on how to like do the demon summoning ritual, which is another like funny detail on how to summon Kagutaba like manual.
Yeah, because that's how you have to explain, like, well, they used to do it with monkeys, but she was doing it with the stolen fetuses, and she used to work at this hospital, basically.
Yep.
So like they have to find a way to explain
monkeys.
This.
She did have fetuses.
Yeah, but I love that they kind of it's ambiguous whether she actually summoned it or whether they successfully did the pacification. You're not entirely sure. He ends up taking sort of Marika and the conspiracy theorist guy to the hospital, and you know ends up paying a visit to Junko at her house in the village, only to have found her having already hanged herself, surrounded by Kagutaba masks everywhere and dead pigeons
and the loops. And like there's so many.
Yeah.
I love that that whole house design and that
production
scene is
great.
Crazy. It's like every single corner you see, just these smallest details of the loops or dead pigeons or whatever
it's all filled
it is.
With something.
Oh my god, it just looks like the filthiest house ever. It's awesome.
Well, and also finding the dead girl who had been missing the entire time, and finding out that the son who everyone assumed was her son was actually just another. It's implied to be like another kidnapped boy. Essentially, she had adopted a boy, and he then decides, I'm going to adopt the boy, and that was like the first moment where I went, that's.
Dude,
that's
like this kid's not saying a damn thing after all of this. We need sums up here.
At the very least, I feel like there should be a government system that goes, well, we should probably get that boy some therapy. We should probably institutionalize this boy for a little bit, figure out what's going on here before just giving him to the paranormal researcher who tries to give him like this normal domestic life, like with his wife, which they try to show you. But I immediately knew the vibes were fucking rancid on whatever was going to be happening here. So every scene where they were like, here's a cute little boy eating dinner, and here's Kobayashi like visiting bullshit. The actress in the hospital. She's recovering nicely. Everything's okay. And I was like, it's just
you're lying.
It's fucking not, man.
You'd end the movie if this was the case. The
opening scene of the movie was this guy's house burns down, his wife dies, and he's disappeared. Like I know.
You can't lie to me. Yeah.
We really need to do a demon test on this little boy before he takes him home.
Is there any? Yeah, there's some. You have to have whatever that device is, man. This is your gig. He doesn't do it. He doesn't check. And Kobayashi, still looking for answers as to what happened, again, visits this historian, hears all about this demon summoning ritual, and goes, damn, well, hopefully that didn't work. Yeah. And he ends his documentary with the hope that literally just, well, I don't know, hopefully the demon goes away, like question mark, like that, and then credits, like that's how his documentary literally ends. And then the movie gives you the follow-up documentary that whoever is actually supposedly making this about the filmmaker gives you, and that sequence is one of the darkest, bleakest, again, another found footage like shock set piece that you get into this that I just found is amazing, of the conspiracy theorist literally trying to show up at the house being like, the ectoplasmic worms are still doing their shit. You've been eaten. Everyone's been eaten. It's coming. You go, well, this guy's been right the whole time. I don't know if we should doubt him now. Yeah. He barges into the house with a rock, literally starts beating the wife with the rock, literally starts bashing the kid's head in with the rock. And you're like, God damn, that seems a little bit much. But then that kid is standing there, clearly possessed by the demon, clearly having psychic powers, and goes, well, this guy is now my new protector. He's like my guardian. Your wife is going to set herself on fire. And we get this all from the perspective of just like Kobayashi completely paralyzed on the ground with the camera watching all of this happen. And I was like, God damn, it's a scary as hell like ending. And
it feels like I don't think there's many noticeable cuts, if there are, but it feels like once the scuffle really begins, there's kind of like this one shot sequence in a way of like, the son having the demon face for a second, the camera kind of pans away, it's horrifying. He comes back, so and then the face is still bloodied up because he was beaten, but he's a normal boy. But then you have the background apparition of the actual demon behind them. It's like all of these added things are amazing. And then just the creepiness of like watching him go through Kobayashi go through all of these terrible things with his family, and then it just says he's missing, like just another intriguing thing of like, well, we could continue this mystery if we wanted to, we could unravel more, but it's been so horrible that we're gonna end it here. That's all we have. That's the footage we have.
It says he's missing and then no end credits. It's just it just leaves you with that.
It's crazy.
Absolutely.
And
it gives you the vibe that you're watching like some like government tape or something like that.
One
they just
thing that you really weren't supposed to watch. And the only thing that I don't necessarily love about when this happens in these movies, and it's such a nitpick that it's really not that important, and I think the rest of the movie and the whole movie works as a whole, of course, but when there are these like crazy violent moments happening and he's still grabbing the camera and going like capturing everything perfectly.
He's like, hey, stop
frame.
Bashing my wife's head in with a rock, and he's putting the camera in the guy's face. You're like, dude, drop the camera and fucking fight for your wife.
At the very least, I understand, like, you could easily just like put it on the, like, he drops it on the ground and then you get the framing for it. And again, this is a nitpick. It's so stupid, but
which they do by the end. Like, I like that last shot a lot because he literally gets knocked over, the camera falls, and the rest of it is from a static shot of the camera on the ground.
Yeah. And again, nitpick. It does bother me a little bit when that happens, but it's not important.
So, God, and everything.
The action beat of him fighting the conspiracy theorist guy with the camera is the one. I agree.
But you're like, you should put it down now, dude. He's beating a child and he's trying to like get your wife involved, and like, I don't know, forget about your documentary just for 5 minutes to save your family.
I think there's even one part where like the after the wife sets herself on fire, because that is a great shot where it's like on the ground.
Oh yeah,
and it's just happening like in real time from that perspective. I think there even is a shot where he kind of like he's freaking
Does he pick
out.
it back up?
Yeah, I think he even comes back and kind of like picks it back up while he's like trying to get to
he's
her.
Like, look at this shot of my wife on fire. That's actually insanely well framed.
It is a little like silly found footage tropey in that way, but the scene is so like effective overall after the entire.
Or is he just a filmmaking legend?
He's worked so hard on this documentary. Like,
he's come this far. He's like, I'm gonna get my final shot at the very fucking
for
least.
the craft. For the craft.
Exactly. Yeah. He's Coppola. He's the Coppola of paranormal investigators.
There you go.
He's getting in the thick of it.
Yeah. But no, what an ending. I you know, I also heard that apparently he wanted like a different ending, apparently. And like he did a Q&A where he said that he wanted something where it was like they go through like a portal and like save the girl or something like that. That was his original ending. And it was the producers who were like, you need to do something a little you know, more we want to end on like a scary high note, please. So he did give them this, and I don't think he like hates the ending or anything. I think he was like, it was a compromise with them, but I still like filmed it to the best of my ability, because I think it absolutely works. And I think it's part of what, again, that oppressive, inescapable vibe that it ultimately has is, you know, even though you're like, you probably had enough details at that point, you probably could have figured the boy was a demon, but it doesn't change the fact that it's a very viscerally effective and upsetting sequence, especially just the elongated shot of the kid with the mask for a face, then having the guy clearly possessed walking the kid out, being like, well, those guys are going to go do some damage now. And it turns out it was probably the kid the entire time, who might have even been fucking possessing the mom or whatever. Or perhaps she just did effectively put the demon into the kid and everything's good now. He's just a vessel. You don't really, that aspect I like that they leave ambiguous and just leave you with the note of, yeah, here's a guy watching his wife possessed light herself on fire and screaming, cut to black. I was like, God fucking damn.
It is kind of wild that that's somewhat a producer decision, because it is bleak and it is kind of miserable. And I was just like, honestly, I think that this filmmaker, I got to see more of his stuff. I really loved this. But that idea,
apparently he likes portals, so apparently that might be true. Apparently,
I just don't like the, you know, I feel like it's got to lead into a little bit more hellishness, because I really like this ending. I think it's like, it's because it's that thing that when we're talking about like a paranormal investigative show, it's like that thing that you want to happen at the end. I mean, not this miserable maybe, but you're kind of like, oh, is the ghost gonna actually do something significant? And for it to do the most like violent, just miserable thing, I think is pretty wild. And I'm surprised that it's not a director's choice.
Yeah, I think this. I think the director is a pretty prolific found footage filmmaker. In particular, I think he has quite a few found footage movies among his like dozens of directorial efforts that it seems like he has. I think the other one, Occult, the 2009 movie, is pretty well recommended by fans of Noroi. If you like this one, apparently it's another kind of slow burn found footage procedural type horror movie. So it seems to be his bag for some pretty good stuff.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah, apparently he's still like making stuff that even came out in like 2024 and something that came out in 2025. So I'm going to have to go down the rabbit hole. Wow, yeah, the thing that came out just last year, people seem to really like. I'm going to have to hunt that down.
Yeah.
Called About a Place in the Kinky Region.
Hell yeah, okay. Let's go, baby.
I'm there.
Kinky with an I at the end.
Well,
not
damn it.
Yeah. Jamie's like, fuck that shit. Then not watch listing. Fuck that shit. But yeah, no, if we're pivoting towards reductive rating round here on Noroi, this was a very solid to high for me, honestly, as a first watch. I really, really liked this. I'm going to see myself coming back to this, I think, and especially like knowing more of what it is, because it's just as effective of like the found footage horror movie as, you know, people had told me it was, but I was enjoyably, blissfully unaware of the fact that beyond the beautifully ugly sort of like a lo-fi DV grain and sort of amateur handheld sort of shock horror stuff that it has in it, that it was just a really awesome slow burn procedural, well written, great characters, fantastic style and structure to it in terms of like, yeah, being an amateur documentary filmmaker, but playfully using that formatting and at times playfully recreating variety shows and game shows and news broadcasts, and doing so pretty effectively. Like, this guy clearly knows what he's doing, and again, using all of that basis as a way to accumulate these eccentric industry people who are making a product. You know, the fact that so much of this is like about an actress and a psychic and a historian and a literal tinfoil hat paranoid conspiracy theorist character, and just watching them fall into like a Lovecraftian demon summoning horror movie is just such a fantastic idea. And the fact that those creepy and surreal details just are so patiently doled out, just infiltrating along the margins of the movie in a way where you're like, I don't understand how that's even connected to that. And maybe you're a little disoriented, a little confused, but it's done in a very deliberate, slow burn way to really build to a point where he is going to hit you with the upsetting imagery when it comes. And I appreciated that patience, the methodical approach he had to telling his actual sort of mystery storytelling, and how well just like overlapped and unraveled it is, and how big it is in scope, how ambitious it is in terms of the mythology and, you know, the eventual sort of unsettling creepypasta horror set pieces that are then born of that. Because yeah, there's stuff in here that I'm gonna keep fucking thinking about, like the 70s cult ritual tape with the mask, the sounds of the screaming aborted fucking fetus ghosts that are used in the demon summoning ritual, the ectoplasmic worm shit, the dead pigeons and dogs, all of the bizarre possessed behavior and disappearances and suicides that even when they are flatly delivered to you, because you're like, we were just interviewing that person, they were a real person, and then bam, the news is like, yeah, that person was in a gruesome car accident or fucking hanged themselves. And just, I don't know, it has such an oppressive mood and a fatalism to it that I just found really, really well done, really powerful, really dread-inducing. And even if at a certain point this is so well explained, there were parts of me that was like, man, you could have even made that a little ambiguous and it might have even been a little bit more powerful. The entire final half hour of this movie with the rowboat ritual and the cross-cutting to the forest sacrifice stuff to the gruesome fiery like home invasion finale and the final shot of it, I just thought it was so effective as a demon possession horror film, and the formatting just made it just feel even more authentic and weird in a way that I really liked. And yeah, I believe that this movie was summarized by the girl about 30 minutes into the movie. I guess it's too late for all of us.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I think this is awesome. I'm glad that I finally got to watch it. This has been on my watch list for quite some time. So really great to finally be exposed to this director too, because I'm just looking at his list, and I got to check out more of these, like what are they? Senritsu Kaiki files. Like they're just there's a couple here that are really well received. Like we're talking like 3.8s on Letterboxd, so they have their community of fans, and I'm just super intrigued by them. A couple of them that I'm looking at even have the images of like the distorted face that we talked about in The Ring. So maybe even that like that blurred image is something that is kind of prevalent in Japanese horror.
It looks like an ongoing series of like 70-minute movies he was doing for like a number of years in the 2010s.
And it's all investigative. Like it says a lot of them when I'm reading the things are like a physicist and a psychic and a like an idol come together to investigate a spirit or something like that. So that alone, I think, is really intriguing, and I'd like to see all the different things that he's doing.
The highest rated one is so funny. It's Hanako-san in the toilet.
Oh yeah. I was referring to that one earlier, I think, with the girl in the toilet. Yeah.
One of them is called...
But the title is literally The Truth, Hanako-san in the toilet.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
One of them is called The Most Terrifying Movie in History.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I gotta check this stuff out. This is amazing. And again, having a Freddy vs. Jason, but it's the Ring girl or something.
I'm literally probably going to watch that tonight.
I have to watch that. That's insane. That's got to be at least somewhat entertaining. But anyway, I just think his mix of all these different formats, where he's like including the television programs and then his found footage stuff, mixing also the format of an actual like paranormal investigative show, and then making it an actually kind of dread-inducing mystery that I found every little detail to be incredibly important by the time I got to the end of it. And it was really cool to just every single thing that is answered for you kind of leads to another question, but it then answers that thing that you were just watching, like the baby voices in the beginning, and then when it's revealed of like the sacrifices that were made and why that is, it adds to another kind of creep factor for that scene. Before it was already kind of interesting and creepy just based on the imagery he's setting up, the loops, the dead pigeons, all of that, the boy looking out the window. But then when you see everything in its context, I mean, I honestly can't wait to rewatch it, just because I think all of those clues are going to be feel so much more significant when I know also like what it's leading to. Yeah, great stuff. 4 out of 5.
Yeah, no, agreed. I really appreciate this movie's commitment to kind of the realism of the procedural that it's conveying through its found footage format, especially kind of accentuated by the tagline that is on Letterboxd, which says, "Everything is real, everybody died."
Yeah, it does take it very seriously, right? Like even with some of its tone that it goes a little sideways with the television programs, it's really taking this mystery seriously. It feels like a kind of a dreadful, serious tone the entire time.
Yeah, it wants to give it that realism, and I think even like as kind of sort of like something of a culmination of this sort of period of J horror type movies around the turn of the century that have to do with all the technophobia stuff. Kind of even now, I feel like that is kind of all culminated in this, where the fear itself is an actual amateur videotape that has become the very form of the movie itself, basically, where you're no longer just watching the ring tape, you're now watching the entire amateur videotape that this documentarian made that is documenting this the progression of this curse that is taking over his entire life in this city and the city.
Yeah,
and then watching the person who added footage on top of his movie to explain where he went.
So it seems like it's just taking like all the videotape curse stuff of so much of the J horror around this time even further. Yeah, no, it pretty much does. This just feels like the ultimate culmination of this kind of like turn of the century wave of J horror movies. They're all concerned with like these scary videotapes and curses and technophobia kind of taking over this like kind of ways of Japanese tradition and the old ways, and the encroaching feeling of the future kind of coming in and taking over. So I think it kind of acts as kind of an interesting endpoint of that era in a way, and it does so like just kind of super effectively. So yeah, it's as a procedural, as a found footage movie, it kind of succeeds on both counts. So yeah, I mean, it's a really, really strong 4 out of 5 on this one for me. I've seen it twice now, and I could definitely see rewatching it in the future just because it's so effective in what it's doing.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, amazing. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this week's episode. That was Ringu from 1998 and Noroi, The Curse from 2005. Thanks so much, Trace, for joining us and for bringing these films on with you.
Yeah.
We were glad to finally knock this one off the watch list for both of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. It was super fun.
While we've still got you here, is there anything that you can plug to our listeners? Anything that people can check out your writing anywhere? Or any pieces you got coming up?
Yeah, no, usually I'm hanging out at Awards Watch and occasionally AV Club these days. I'm not sure what I've had gone up recently. I just had a review for a new release. 28 years later, The Bone Temple is up at Awards Watch if you're interested in what
Was
I
it any good? We haven't seen it yet.
I enjoyed it, but I'm definitely wondering what the ambition of this new trilogy is overall. Okay, I will leave it at that. Yeah, I have a problem with a lot of Alex Garland scripts, and I feel like this kind of is the same thing.
Gotcha.
Okay. And I also had an interesting piece that I liked to go up at AV Club that was kind of about December. I saw Five Nights at Freddy's 2 and Dust Bunny come out at the same time, and it was kind of about contrasting modes of gateway horror between like Dust Bunny, which is kind of a more classical studio entry point into horror for kids, and then Five Nights at Freddy, which is how kids find out about horror now, which is on the internet and video games and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was writing about stuff like that.
Which is terrifying.
Yeah,
that's the scariest part about the Five Nights at Freddy's is that the kids are being like, "This is what horror movies are," and I'm like, "I swear, there's so much better."
Yeah, there's a lot of other stuff.
Not my kids.
Watch Noroi, you 8-year-old.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's scare the shit out of you.
We did have a different class of like internet horror cult videotape sharing shit, not just like you watched a streamer play like a spooky thing and you're just like, now this is what horror is. I'm like, it's guys.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's the millennial in me jumping out.
We need to actually scare these kids. Let's go.
But yeah, we will have a link to Trace's work in the description for you guys to go and check out. But for our listeners, we are going to be back in 1 week's time, where we are going to be, as we've sort of been alluding to a bit, we're going to be breaking the rules once again. But we're going to be talking about the Ring remake by Gore Verbinski. So we're going to be in full on in the Ring zone because Jamie and I both, independent of each other, actually rewatched it recently and wanted to talk about it. So this was good setup for that finally talk about it. We wanted to do the due diligence of for sure covering the original first.
Yeah.
And we're going to be pairing it actually with the mid-2000s adaptation of Silent Hill. So we're going to be talking about Western filmmakers tackling J-horror and how well they do it, how poorly they do it. We're going to talk about that all next week over on the Patreon. And then in 2 weeks' time, we are going to be going rare times on this show where we talk about classic animation. We are going to be once again talking about Ralph Bakshi, and we're going to be talking about the movie Heavy Traffic, which I have not seen, but I am sure it's just as sick and perverted as every other Ralph Bakshi thing that we've ever talked about on this show. And I have been promised that the pairing is something actually even more sick and perverted than even Ralph Bakshi. It is a movie called Wicked City from 1987, directed by the maker of Vampire Hunter D, Bloodlust, which I have not seen, but he was also someone who was involved in the Animatrix and also Batman Gotham Knight. So I am very curious what this is. All I have been told is that if you haven't seen it, don't look up anyone who has said anything about it. And I promised I wouldn't do that. So I was like, okay,
let's do it. Going in blank. I like it.
But if you're pairing it with Ralph Bakshi, I'm sure it's fucked up.
Yep.
And perfect for this show. So that's what we're going to be talking about in 2 weeks' time over on the main feed. But yeah, that wraps it up for everything this week. Thanks so much for listening, and keep it sleazy.
Keep it sleazy, everybody.